3, 2, 1, go.
Louisa, thank you for being on the Technocrat Live.
My pleasure.
Louisa Patsides.
That's correct. You got it.
Yes, I got it. So apparently people have been messing up your name forever.
Since school.
Since school?
Yes.
Yeah, they were pretty. There was some pretty brutal allegory. You wouldn't think it with Newhall, but they were pretty creative. There was a couple of really brutal ones. So
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
No offense, it seems kind of vanilla.
it does, right? You know,
Newhall.
I think it's just, you know what? 7th and 8th graders are the cruelest people in the world.
7th and 8th graders?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think
it started
so.
with me a little younger.
They're
'Cause I was like the little Greek girl, the only little Greek girl in class.
Yeah.
So.
Was that weird, or I mean, it's weird because for me, I knew some, you know, Jeannie,
Of course.
and her family. I knew
Yes.
them growing up,
There
so
you go.
like I'm like, you know, to me, it's normal to have Greeks. There were several Greeks in our school, so I guess you just
Not in
won a
my-
bad lottery or something.
Not in my elementary school, but I encountered Greeks in high school. So I had kumbaras, as we call it, kumbaros and kumbaras.
Ah, really? What does that
Yes.
mean? I don't even know what that means.
Compadre, companion, paisan was the Greek word for it.
Right. Cool. So, well, thank you so much for coming on. I have a couple of news items I want to go over.
Sure.
Here, I'm going to mispronounce. Speaking of mispronunciation, let's talk about Huawei. Huawei. Thank you. I keep doing that. So you brought up Huawei last time, and Steve brought up Huawei, and I had missed it. So I have some interesting information. Have you heard about this?
Just so they're the networking company in China.
No, they're hardware.
Hardware.
So there was a security thing with them. So the accusation has been going around. We have started embargoing them.
Yes.
Because the accusation is that they're spying on us. And they're spying in general. So. So this is interesting. You might think this is gonna turn political, but actually it's a surprise. It's not the way that people might think it was. So actually Trump did do a ban on them. So what the ban is it bans their company from buying parts and components from American firms.
Okay.
So it's just banning their company from buying ours.
So they can't copy our tech.
Right, I think that's the idea. But also, it's just a way to. It's kind of a symbolic way to say, "Hey, we're serious about this," and it's a first step. You know. So a couple interesting things happened with this. So the head of Huawei, Liang Hua, anyway, said they can get a no spy. They're willing to do a no spy agreement where we guarantee that we won't spy on them, and they'll guarantee they won't spy on us. So kind of like a de-escalation. But the problem is like, how can you negotiate? You're a private company who's out to maximize your profits. So that negotiation really should be between the Chinese government and the United States government.
Correct.
Because otherwise there's no enforcement mechanism. So I'm like, how does that work? But the funny thing is, there's been a couple foolish people jumping on the political bandwagon with the Huawei thing. And actually the funny thing is, it turns out last December was the United States had no interest in Huawei. We weren't paying attention to them, or at least not publicly. And Australia, New Zealand, and Japan were all publicly petitioning for us to punish or to confront Huawei about the spying thing. So actually, we got dragged into it by some of our allies. So this wasn't us this time. So at least it didn't start with us. Now it is us, but we didn't start that way. I thought that was interesting and kind of a little more clarification on exactly what happened. Also have some news for the show. So I just as a silly thing, I put up a Technocrat Live playlist of music that I just thought would be fun music for technocrats. If you have any suggestions, and basically it needs to be musically sound, probably something that was popular at one point with someone, and something that's really like good for technocrats. Feel free to put them in the comments, and maybe I'll add them to the playlist. I'm going to be a brutal dictator on this.
I got a big list for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a brutal dictator on this. So if I don't if I don't love it, I'm not going to put it up. Doesn't mean it's not good. Doesn't mean it's not appropriate. I just, there's a lot of playlists out there, so I got to be picky. The DJ's in it for everybody, so I'm going to be the DJ for the technocrats out there.
Awesome.
So yeah, I just thought it'd be a fun thing to do. So and if you have any other questions, just feel free to put them in the comments and ask away. So Louisa knows security pretty well. I know administration. She's been part of my part of our group, for our security group, not the Lilac group, but a different group, part of Lilac.
Yes.
But
Special
a very
interest group.
more focused in on keeping large numbers of servers from getting hacked. So feel free to ask any questions you might have about security or whatnot. The next show is going to be a little different, so just a fair warning. I'm going to have Mike and Matt on, who actually have their own podcast, and they're going to be the first non-technocrats on the show. So if the format of the show bugs you, this might be different. On the other hand, if the format of the show bugs you, this might be a good opportunity to find out about them and go check out their show. So next week, check that out. And hopefully they'll pitch me the same way. Like, if you find us too silly and not factual enough, please visit Matt at thetechnocratlive.com. So,
Masterpiece Theater.
Masterpiece.
You have to wear your
That's awesome.
I
did 5 notes, and I didn't actually do it right, and you knew what I was talking about anyway, so it's not a copyright violation. Wah!
domain.
And of course, we're going to do the panel that we did was really popular, so we're going to do panel number 2 at the end of the month. So, and you're invited. So if you want to be on it, let me know if you're available. And
panels are fun, I have to say.
Panels are
fun.
Panels are spectacular, and the best part about them is I get to ask tougher questions. I like to be nice when I'm doing this, but on the panel I can be mean. Because there's 5 people, and it's not really my fault, right? They're just killing each other. So, kind of like Chronicles of Riddick, right? Just turn the lights out, and they're killing each other. Sorry if you haven't seen Chronicles of Riddick yet.
2-month rule.
2-month rule, yeah. 2-decade rule. All right, so let's see. So, there was one more thing. So, did you guys do DevOps at all? So, you work in the healthcare industry, and you're a security manager. I didn't know you were a manager. I thought you were just. I thought you were just like, one of the.
Pretty girl.
No, I didn't.
Token girl.
Do you get that a lot?
I do it to myself.
You do it to yourself?
I do it to myself.
So, I mean, like, there's on the one hand, you can make things fun and lighthearted. On the other hand, you can, you can sink yourself and you go.
Yeah.
Right. There's like a spectrum between like lots of fun and total bitch.
Serious.
And like
bitch.
somewhere in between, you got to find the happy space, right?
No, I've learned to. My personality is I'm always self-deprecating. I mean, I pick on myself before I pick on anybody else.
That's
I don't
really interesting.
ever want somebody to feel bad, but on the unless I want them to feel bad. Wait a minute. But I have a self-deprecating sense of humor, and I actually insist on an environment where you can crack a joke, you can crack a dirty joke, you can release through humor, because technology and IT can get very stressful.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. Twitch. And so if you can't, crack a fart joke or make fun of my name, I didn't get to tell you how, it went from being picked on as a child to, the Greek girl or PPCDs or whatever they say, to me
also,
saying,
7th and 8th graders
no,
are
my name is not Louisa Petite Tits. Do these tits look petite? No. So I get more.
All right, icebreaker, we're good.
Exactly.
Want a drink?
It ain't over.
Continue.
But what do they say? You get more bees with honey or flies with honey.
Right.
Than you do
That's
with vinegar.
the most crazy thing.
So
ever.
I feel like if I sweet and make fun of myself, that I kind of, like you said, break the ice, and I'm able to build relationships with people who I have to work with, and I know there are men who are uptight because they don't know how to act. They're so
Right. And part of that is industry
either
specific.
socially, it is.
Yeah.
It is. I've seen, well, can I mention Lilog?
What do you mean?
Walking into Lilog, being one of 2 women,
And we're good.
and
we're
we've gotten better,
we've got a
but-
ratio,
but,
unlike some places don't even have one. It's an
right,
infinite to nothing.
But I mean, however long it was ago that I began to attend Lilog, I remember there was a guy there who was just, you could tell this man, it was,
That's okay. Was not really
It's
exposed
a spa.
to women.
Just think of it as a spa.
Yeah.
Yes, take care of me. Yes.
But this gentleman was not really exposed to seeing women very often. So I was with a friend, and he was staring. Just
Right.
staring. And, I noticed it. She didn't. I know he was staring at her probably more than me.
Mm-hmm.
But I get that he's probably,
Well, he might be on the spectrum, so that's one of the things that happens.
I know you talked about that on one of your other shows. There
Right.
is that,
Right.
but
So that's
maybe-
actually a symptom of now, of course, we're not talking about somebody with a mild case of Asperger's. I'm talking about someone with full-blown autism, like
spectrum.
really unable to function socially.
amazing.
When they get that far, sometimes one of the symptoms is just staring.
right. Right.
And it can actually be. It could even be Asperger's. It can even
can be.
It can be, and it just And I think a lot of it is that the input-output mechanism is kind of busted up.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really going. It's not that they don't have feelings like everyone else, because there's been a lot of analogies between psychopaths and autism, the autism spectrum.
Really?
And I think, but it's just a misnomer.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what's actually the psychopaths they don't have the empathy. I think it's just they just can't express how they feel, or they
Right,
can't
right.
accept the expression from other people.
Right. Right.
It's there. It's just there's a wall in the way.
I think people who are autistic or have Asperger's, they have it pent up inside, and they just don't know how to express it. There's like
Right, and one of the consequences is staring.
staring or other things.
Also, 7th and 8th graders, right? Meanest people in the world.
Yeah.
Oh, I had strange feelings I don't understand yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. It's adolescence. It's arrested development.
Mm-hmm.
So I can recognize it, and I deal with
Does
it.
that happen to you as the boss?
No, actually, since I've stepped into management, I've actually been lucky, well, cursed and lucky, cursed and blessed to build my own team.
Aw,
now, when I first
that's
stepped
great.
in,
I'm jealous.
had inherited a team, and the team that I inherited actually were jaded. They were sliced down. It was a minimal team. They were 4 people. It's cut down to 2. The 2 that were there, one of them had been overlooked for promotions and had applied for the manager position that I scored. So it could have been him hating me, but I am a very, no-nonsense person. And I had one-on-ones with them, and I said, listen, whatever came before, I don't care. We're starting fresh.
I've had that too.
Yeah,
I know exactly where you're coming
You know what I mean? And apparently I gained their respect because it came back to me through the grapevine. Of course, unfortunately, both of them ended up separating from the company on different terms.
Right.
But it did come back to me that I wasn't the reason.
Right.
In fact, it came back to me that they respected me and they were looking forward to working with me, but for whatever reason,
Right.
they didn't. So I got to build a team, and I got to choose
It's
the
funny.
personalities.
You have this relationship with a company, and it's like having a relationship with a person, but the company's just this big blob of people and policies, and it's a moving target. And,
Right.
And like
You don't know what came
And
before.
if you get lied to or burnt so many times, you're just like, I don't trust you anymore. I need it right now, up front, or I'm out of here. And I've been there. I've gotten to that situation where.
I have too.
And I think it's our industry. It's just like jobs go like this.
Well, that was
It's
one
the
of
only
the
way
things-
management knows how to handle promoting people is like getting frustrating them until they quit and then hiring a new one.
Hiring a new one. Very few times do I ever see promotion from within, and that's a shame.
Right.
But later on we could talk about it. But that's kind of what I meant by there's an industry burnout.
Talk about it now. I'll bring us
I'll bring
back.
it up. Yeah. Okay.
I'll keep segueing back.
Well, I think there is a burnout in IT, in IT in general. I mean, cybersecurity is separate because cybersecurity is growing,
Right.
and we need people. There's 0% unemployment there. Kids that are going into school now, they know that's where the money is. They know that's where the jobs are. So they want to get into cyber. They don't care. But the
Right.
whole IT industry, system admins, people who have been, pushing the buttons and flicking the levers, they're burnt out. I don't blame them because there's a lot of repetition.
Right.
There's a push to stay on top of technologies, to keep up with the Joneses.
Right. So so one thing that was happening. I started in tech basically by quitting college and going into tech in the .com boom. And
wow. What a time.
there were a lot of fakers.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I would say a third.
I
Of
think
the
that's gonna
admin,
come
of the
in.
admin and management, particularly in the management space, because you can fake it longer.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of fakers, and it was tough. So, are you finding that's happening now in cybersecurity? Are there people who come in and be like,
I'm worried that's going to happen. Honestly, so things have shifted in the 12 years that I've been in security.
Uh-huh.
It used to be called information security. Now it's cyber security.
You were in security before it was cool.
Yes, I was.
You were in security before pre-Snowden, and that's when it turned cool.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
February 2007
Right.
is when I got my break in security administration.
Nice.
And then I crawled my way up, like scratched and crawled and punched and kicked, but
Right.
I rose.
But that's just code,
Yeah.
That's just code and logs.
Sec admin it's data entry. It's freaking data entry and
Right.
databases. And then getting into the analyst role, that was a little bit more exciting because I like solving problems and I like analysis. I actually do. But you have to make sense of it. There has to be meaning.
I know at least one person who has demoted themselves. You know them too. Who demoted himself to the nth degree, just so he could get into analysis. So because he likes it so much.
It is. It takes me back to. I think probably if you were to psychoanalyze me or talk about how I
Would you
got
like a couch to lie on?
IT. Oh wait.
Good catch. You're fine. Don't worry.
I love puzzles.
Yeah.
Growing up as a kid, my mom had me doing jigsaws with her, Rubik's Cube, gaming, Atari.
Wait, well, hold on. Rubik's Cube. Did you solve the Rubik's Cube?
No, I didn't.
No, all right. Nobody did
I
it
took
first.
it apart.
I did the stickers too. I was like,
No.
there's an obvious
There's a
solution.
little- yeah.
Sticker. I solved it. Thinking outside the box. It's on the logo. It's on the logo.
I saw, this here's marketing for you. There was some book probably in Toys R Us or whatever, a little thin book, how to solve the Rubik's Cube. So I'm like, I'm going to figure it out. So I bought the book. It tells you, take a screwdriver, pop each piece out, and rearrange it. So I did that. I broke my Rubik's Cube, and I couldn't put it back together again.
Oh, that sucks.
What kind of a maker am I?
So my son has two. He has one that's all messed up and one
then
that's
one that's
done.
perfect.
One that's perfect. So if he feels like having a perfect Rubik's Cube, he just switches Rubik's Cubes. That's a solution too, right? Throw some money
you know
at
what, though?
it.
There was pleasure in getting it, only so that one color was different
Right.
on the top. So I got it as close as
I
possible.
think it was 3 weeks or 4 weeks. It's like 3.5 weeks before anyone solved it when it came out. It literally was 3.5 weeks that no one on earth
I
could
just remember
solve
the
it.
guy doing it with one hand, and I'm like,
Right. Well,
"Oh."
once one guy figured it out, and then let someone
Yeah, the
video record
sequence.
him,
Yeah,
then it was
yeah.
just it's like a pattern if you
that's
follow
what
it,
I
always
love,
works.
patterns and sequences, and
Mm-hmm.
any puzzles like that. So if I didn't get the Rubik's Cube, I think there was another similar type of puzzle called the pyramid. That one I solved. The snake.
Yep.
Any of the little bead puzzles. I
just
loved all
played
that
with the
stuff.
snake.
Matt.
Sorry. Now I think I should have had a Rubik's Cube. There was one available. I could have brought it and just.
I wish this was show and tell.
Right?
Right?
You
I
know,
would have brought in some
gonna
really cool stuff.
If you're going to be on the show, and I'm planning to, to like kind of like announce a season 2 at some point.
Okay.
And then I'll start having people back on.
I would
And
love to bring some crap.
Bring toys.
I bring my
the toys you want to
Merlin.
bring.
Do you remember Merlin? Here's
Yeah.
Merlin. I bring a lot of stuff that
Nice.
was early electronics and
it was
and
great.
books and stories.
Yeah,
so.
with the pre-drawn LED characters, and they only have so many of them printed on, like all the old video games where you have, what I'm talking about,
Well, it's like a red light.
every
That's all it
handheld
is.
game for 10 years in the 80s, pretty much, like
Yep,
football or Donkey
With
Kong.
the little red light, or
Yep.
if is it an LED? No, it's a.
No, those were LEDs. They
Those
just
were?
they didn't have the blue ones yet. So
okay.
early 90s, someone figured out, patented blue LEDs.
Okay.
Before that, it was just the red and the green.
Okay.
So without the blue
Makes
LEDs, they couldn't do LED screens.
Oh, you just reminded me of something.
Yeah, go ahead, shoot.
It's a calculator. I have my very first calculator, and it had if you got the calculation right, it would light the little green light. It was a little owl. He had a green light in one eye and a red light in the other eye.
There you go. See,
Kind of
those
like
are the-
speak and spell, I guess.
Those are the two OK colors.
Yes, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Cool.
So there was the blue LED was the elusive one. Okay, so what were we talking about? So we were talking about burnout.
Yeah.
Has anybody burned out under your watch? I mean, people you
I
actually
feel
picked
sometimes that
that were
I've
under your
burned,
total tutelage.
under my
I mean, it's going to happen
tutelage.
eventually, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to happen eventually, but if you sense you're burning out, I think that's when you make your jump to another company. And
Right,
in this
right.
day and age, there's no loyalty.
Well,
you stay 2 years here, 3 years there, and you jump higher up. I mean, that's what I did, and honestly, that's what the youth is doing.
Are you
the
a Marvel?
millennials.
Are you a Marvel fan?
Somewhat. You talking about the movies or the comics?
The movies.
Okay. Yes,
Yeah.
I am.
The
I've
MCU.
seen them all.
Oh, you've seen them all. Okay, Thor Ragnarok, where the
Except for Ant-Man.
Sakaar, where all the junk is just accumulating on the planet.
Yes.
That's kind of what happens with responsibilities in IT, and eventually you get to a point where you're like, I can't handle this anymore.
Yeah.
I can't even manage this anymore, and
Yes.
the only thing you can do is quit, because that forces your management. Not necessarily
Right.
your immediate supervisor, but the people up the chain to go, okay, we need to actually redistribute these tasks in a way that they can be done. Right?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, you totally did it wrong. That's what it is. Yeah, it's my fault. I wanted lapel mics because I'm like, no one will notice them. It'll be like when nothing's going on,
But,
except for the guy popping out of the bush to fix your mic.
They didn't see me.
You were a ghost.
In
You
his
were a
mind, they
ghost.
didn't see. We did.
Ruined the
He's the Flash. Speaking of Marvel, but that's
DC.
DC. That's DC. Ooh, bad.
Beanie as like a little shark.
It's Quicksilver
That's it.
Marvel. Yeah. What?
You might have seen the beanie as a shark fin, but that's it. I was invisible.
Sharks are embarrassed because their fins poke over the
Poke in
water.
the water. Oh.
Poor sharks.
Just don't sing that shark song, please. I can't stand
Is there a
that.
shark song out
Let's not mention it.
Okay, all right. Not mentioning the shark song.
I'll
Don't.
we'll play it after.
Man,
And,
is it like the
and you can
Badger
go
song?
and-
Remember that?
It's a child song about sharks that's like auto-tuned and made into a club hit. And
Okay. My kids probably
surprised
listen
you
to
haven't
it.
heard
Most
it.
likely my kids listen to it. I probably just tuned them out completely at this point.
exactly. But going back to what we were saying about burnout and changing positions, roles, or just knowing when to leave a company. Here's a personal story. I was with a company between 2013 to almost the end of 2015. And I pretty much was told that I wasn't going to rise there. I was going to be the identity and access specialist, that my job was to do the onboarding and the terminations. Oh, and the projects. Oh, and when another person left, I got to take on their responsibilities. But there are no...
Well, that's how you get rid of someone. You just keep giving them responsibilities and they're forced to quit.
There was that company had a turnstile, I guess, a revolving door of people coming into the it was actually security aligned with risk, into that area, coming in and leaving. They would do a year. Some of them wouldn't even get past 6 months because of management. And part of the problem with the management there was that there were people in management who shouldn't have been in management because they were there
and they
so
end up spending all the
long
company
that the
resources
company moved them up. I mean, they just didn't understand how to manage the area.
Right.
And I thought that I was giving good feedback, but instead I was looked at in a negative way. It was one of the only companies that I
Sounds very familiar.
that I wasn't appreciated.
Did you do blah 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 in meetings? Blah blah blah. Like you felt like you said, "Would you please pass the jelly?"
I know, right? Put your hand down your pants, sitting back.
I don't think that's gonna work.
But
poor people in the South.
and I felt like I'm like, hey, I'm only trying to help you people out. You hired me. I'm the expert. I'm telling you what needs to change here to make things better. But you don't want to hear it? Okay, I see the future of my career going.
Right.
Shoo.
Do you think that was because you were a girl? Do you think it was
No,
because
that was because of management and because there was favoritism.
nepotism?
Okay.
Good old fashioned nepotism.
I don't know if it was nepotism, but there definitely was
Yep.
an alliance.
You gotta wonder sometimes what's going on when that kind of thing happens. Like, is
Yeah.
there blackmail pictures, envelopes
God.
in people's desks,
Absolutely. I mean, I heard stories.
Petridge Farm remembers.
I've heard stories about stuff that was on CCTV or captured, happening in the data center, and no one was supposed to see. Secret rendezvous. Yeah, and I mean, I always take that as, that's just gossip, company gossip. But then when
weird
other
things that don't
people
make sense
corroborate, and weird people, certain people get into power that you're just like, that person doesn't know what the hell they're doing.
Right.
I know why they're there.
Yeah. It's sad when that happens.
Yeah,
and I'm sad for them because I know that they've got to like basically sell their soul just to stay alive.
Right, they're trapped. They
Right.
really are.
Yeah. It's not you that's trapped. You can just move to another job. So, and what do you end up having to, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I wanted to bring up something. I wanted to bring up the Shark song. No, just kidding. Not the Shark song. I want to
Don't
bring
you
up.
dare play it. I will take this mic off.
We've had our first walkout. Steve just went too far and played the Shark song. Go play it.
Oh, freaking play it. if you need to play
That's it. I'm walking out. I've had it. We all walk out.
I gotta use the bathroom.
Definitely, we walk out. If we all walk out and protest our own show, we have to leave the camera rolling on the empty room just to make it weird.
on this glass.
I'll just do that so you can see the time passing.
With there you go.
Tails. They literally ended the show and they got up and they left. I'm like, you coming? I'm like, yeah. And then we just killed the lights and they left.
Damn it, they got to it already. They
Drop
already
the
did
mic.
it. The ultimate mic drop, the
Yeah.
studio drop.
I'll show you after the show.
Cool, great. Yeah, they're growing on me. I actually I enjoyed their show a week, not last week, but a week before that. It's not that I didn't enjoy last week's show, I just didn't get a chance to see it yet. But they have a bunch of shows on the network here, so
Okay,
I don't mind
yeah.
plugging them because they're pretty. They're nice guys and, you know,
Yeah,
nice
I'm-
people, and they're you know.
Yeah, sure. I'll have to catch it.
Yeah, they're building up a network here at Area 22, so I'm happy to be part of it. It's kind of like just a coincidence that we're like Lila's meeting here, and I met them, and I wanted to do a
I
show.
love happy
and Paul's like,
coincidences.
you got to connect with these guys. You want to do what they do already, and I'm like, really? And like, here you go. So
See, that's what I live for. I live for those moments of
Of zen.
kismet, serendipity, whatever,
Right,
of
right.
zen, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
Of just
synchronicity.
synchronicity.
Yeah.
I know you don't like the word synergy, but
No,
put that on your notepad. Synergy. No, synergy is a good word, but
maybe we should drink as a
of
cover
where
story.
everything is just converging, and the world is a beautiful,
Right.
starry place.
Beautiful starry place of a lot of strange coincidences.
Right,
Sometimes
right.
which don't work in your favor, and which they're frustrating, but if they do, it's
Right,
like,
right.
divine intervention, awesome. Or at least some kind of universal, force. I don't know, everybody's got a
Right.
different belief, so I don't want to.
Quantum energy.
Quantum energy. Sun worship if you prefer, whatever it is. So, what was that? Oh, it's self-deprecation. That's what I want to talk about.
Okay.
So you do what I used to do. So I got to warn you.
Used to do? Okay.
What I used to do. Well, I can self-deprecate.
You changed.
I did change.
And-
So I will always make sure that I can make fun of me the best, because that's the best way to get out of it. You get into trouble, right? You just you lean in on yourself and you
Right.
can go for it. But I found it started to backfire. So somewhere in my late 30s,
Good
early
point.
40s, people were like, "Yeah, so you're just incompetent." They changed their tune, and people stopped underestimating me by default because of my age. And when that happened, then the advantage, there's an advantage to self-deprecation, which is that, people say, oh, okay, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. They make a couple of mistakes, and, what Napoleon said, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake.
Oh.
Right? So, and I would just play it and let it go and say, yeah, I'm just a silly fool. I don't know what I'm doing.
Right,
I'm
right. I
talking out of
feel
turn
ya.
in meetings and, coming up with clever outs for things and Scottying my time estimates and, it's like in Star Trek, Scotty would always say, Compton is going to take 2 hours.
That's right. And
Can
by
you
the
have it
end
for
of
me
the
in 5
episode,
minutes?
he freaking figured it out.
I've completely redesigned the Enterprise, in 5 minutes,
I love Star
I thought you
Trek.
couldn't do that. What? You just lied to me.
You said this was
It
gonna
wasn't
take
even close. Yeah. So I would do that, and it started to backfire because I was just like, people
I
just didn't
hear
believe it
ya.
anymore. They were like,
Yeah.
you know what you're doing. You're up to something. So it kind of flipped around 180 on me and actually started working against me. So I don't know when it happened. It depended who it was. It was at different times, but sometime between mid-30s and now, I don't want to give too much information, but it's in mid-30s and now, it flipped around. And
I know what you mean.
And so I'm like, well, hell, if I'm going to be the damn expert, I'm going to have my own freaking show. So now I flipped around to expert.
You know what? At some point, see, again, I have my work life and my work world and that bubble, and then I have my personal life. So I'm probably more self-deprecating around my friends because they know I'm a goofball. But somewhere in my work world, I went from being the one who was like, "Can you help me? Please help me. Oh, I'm just silly. I'm just a girl." Or what? Even I,
Right.
I'm new. I'm the newbie.
Right.
Show me. I went from that to actually developing an ego and saying,
Right.
you know what, I'm the shit. I know what I'm talking about. So,
You have to do it sometimes.
I worked hard. I did. It's not just that. Oh, okay, they bumped me up into management because I asked for it. I worked hard. I went for my certifications. I spent instead of doing like today, I could be at the Howard Jones show at the Paramount in Huntington.
Right.
But I want to
You
be
came on
here
my show?
talking. Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
really do. I want to be here talking
you
with you.
did Howard Jones for me, huh?
Howard Jones and Men Without Hats. They're playing.
Men Without Hats was my first.
And Howard Jones.
was my first record. Believe it or not,
Howard Jones was
Pop
my
Goes the
first
World.
real concert that I
Pop
was
Goes
allowed
the
to
World.
go to.
Men Without Hats was one of my first. Was one of my
Such
first
good
singles.
Times. Good times.
One of my first
right?
vinyls. Probably shouldn't admit that. It was really early. I was a little kid.
I could admit that. I think
was when it just
Safety
came
Dance.
out.
Safety Dance was probably the first Men Without Hats song.
Have you seen the
video?
the literal video of that?
No.
So absolutely look up the literal video of Safety Dance.
Oh God, that sounds fun.
We can't do it because we can't hear it, but it's phenomenal. They basically, you know what literal videos are? So it was this thing that was around 5 years ago or 6 years
Okay.
ago. I don't know, maybe it's even longer. Where people would watch videos from the 80s and redub new lyrics over the videos, and the lyrics would describe exactly what's happening in the video.
In the video, when
And-
they're all dancing in a
and
field.
Safety Dance was the
Okay.
best one. It was
Of
the
course.
best. It was the leader.
Because
it's
that's
completely
a crazy,
bananas.
freaking video to begin with.
Just the girl comes up and goes, ah, and then
know,
she
they're
goes,
so happy.
I'm insane. They copyright
would you
take.
describe it?
They go in like waves. The copyright take it down, and then like 3 months later, when no one thinks they're paying attention, whoop,
Pop
it pops back up.
Good.
It's whack-a-mole. So it's great. I got it now. So if nothing else, I could send it to you or something. But it's
I'll
really
look it
funny.
up.
Yeah.
I like watching stuff like that. That kind of.
So good. They're so
yeah.
funny.
But getting back to me working hard to get where I am, I mean, I go to meetups, I go to security events, I submerge myself in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know I don't know everything. I know I have weaknesses in my
Why not?
background.
Yeah. Nobody knows everything.
Exactly.
It's a quick way to figure out
true.
someone's a liar if they tell you they know everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I learned not to put myself down, and that's really an important lesson.
It's a weird middle.
It's an important
I don't know if this is
lesson.
like a middle-age thing, or if it's just an IT middle-age thing, or if
It's a life thing. It's a life thing because
Right.
some people still haven't learned. They
Well,
are
it's-
their
it's, you
harshest
know-
critics, and they,
Microphone. I'm gonna come back over there.
You invoked the microphone troll. You've made him angry.
me and my gestures.
This is what happens
Let me
when
play
Steve
with a
is not
toy.
sleep deprived. When he is sleep deprived from going to school and engineering at the same time.
Yeah. I'm super
gonna play
from
with this.
engineering all the time.
Yep.
I'm sleep deprived too, believe it or not. I know you said
yeah,
you
that's
get
right, you
three.
missed your show,
you get
didn't
3
you?
or 4 hours of sleep a night. You said.
Yeah, I
did.
watched your show.
I talk to anybody at Island Labs. They know that I pull all-nighters. I pull
Really?
I pull all-nighters from time to time because I feel the pressure to do everything.
Yeah, we've talked about that at SciSig too.
And one of my faults, I guess, and I shouldn't admit it in public, but it's that I fail to complete projects. I have such passion and such energy and such verve in the beginning, and
that's okay.
I might be able to see something
Boredom is insight.
3/4 of the way through. Well,
Right.
I can't say that I get bored with it. I just other things come up.
Do you watch Rick and Morty?
Yes, of course. Absolutely.
The one where he's
One guess, it doesn't watch Rick and Morty.
I don't know. It was Rick and Morty.
I love the Meeseeks episode.
Oh, that's great. I have a
That-
Meeseeks shirt. I walk around. It was one of my favorite shirts. I have a Meeseeks shirt. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Look at me.
Great.
The devil episode where he's.
I haven't seen them all. I've seen.
Oh, okay.
I haven't seen everything, but I know.
Let's just say there's an episode where Rick starts a business.
most of season 1.
And then he accomplishes some
Some of the-
lofty psychological goal from his business. He says,
Okay.
I'm bored, and he lights the place on fire and walks out. I've done that.
That's it. It's like I've dropped a project where it's like, this is why
It's
I
the curse of
can't
intelligence.
be a programmer, because for a program you have to complete the coding.
Right.
I mean, took programming in school, and I went through the exercises in the book, but I'll tell you what, the closer I got to the harder exercises, the more tendency for me to just drop the exercise.
Right, right.
I got the gist of it. I can read it. That's
Well,
good.
you know, at some point this comes down to
Follow
open
the
source.
logic.
It comes down to open source and the psychology behind it. And it's just when people write good code when they're scratching their own personal itch, when they're solving their own problem. So you're
Right.
not really solving your problem, you're solving problems in the book. When you got to that point, the right next step, and this is just not for you, this is for everybody. If you're in programming, if you're trying to get into programming and you're able to get to the book and you've gotten through 2/3 of it and you're getting bored with the exercises, that's telling you something. But it's not telling you quit and programming isn't for you. It's telling you, okay, now it's time to try to solve a problem of my own with what I know of the code. Right? And then
Yeah, I
just
guess
go
I
back
didn't
and
adapt that
switch
way.
it from a learning volume to a reference volume. Right? And just go back and check things when you need to know it. So
Right.
Right. So you didn't do anything wrong.
No,
You
I
just-
didn't do anything wrong because I carry that with me, and I always say, hey, I can read a program,
That's
and
it.
not too many
One time.
people can.
Right. Yeah, no, that's good. Can you debug other people's code? Can you help with that?
No, I can't.
Oh, okay.
Nope, I've drifted far from there.
Okay. So I think, here we go. Do you mind, you want a drink or?
Sure, but I prefer the white if that's
Oh,
okay.
no, sorry,
You-
my bad.
You go for the red.
I'll go for the red. You go for the white. Well, I just want to switch our glasses. Because you don't know
yes.
which one has the alkaline
do.
powder in it. Princess Bride reference. Awesome.
Yes, Wallace Shawn.
Yep. You're right. That is the red. I am a total dullard when it comes to wine. I know nothing. I literally made this logo, and then Isaac's like, "Is there going to be
That's like
alcohol on the show?"
I thought that was a martini.
That it was supposed to be a martini.
Where's the olive?
I don't even know how to make a martini, so I just brought wine, and then he's like, "Well, I'll do
Martinis are nice.
wine." So now wine's a stick. So now we do wine.
Yes, I'll have some wine. I'll have a sippy poo.
All right. So
Whiskey.
stop trying to get us drunk.
I'm not there yet.
There's mischief from here in the booth. So this is good. So the reason I asked about DevOps, coming all the way back around to that, is because I had an idea about. Do you guys use it at all, or no?
Yes.
You do use it. So do you have a Kanban board, or what do you do?
Yes, but I'm not in that area. I know
okay.
it sounds crazy.
Well, if you don't need it, you don't need it. I mean,
I
it's
don't need
supposed to
it,
make your
right.
life easier. So.
I mean, we have, yes, there's definitely DevOps area. They're going into Azure and AWS more. So, but I leave that up to that
Well,
team.
so this goes into the broader picture, like
Okay.
why cybersecurity is so popular right now. So I think one of the things is this all goes back to Snowden
Yes.
and General Alexander covering his ass when Snowden happened. You know, because he was the guy in charge. He was the general in charge of the NSA at the time. So he basically said you can't trust admins.
I see.
And which I thought that was great. I was like, oh, that's wonderful. You know, but actually,
Well, they are the ones with privilege access.
they are the ones with privilege access, right? So he basically wanted to change the whole model so that you didn't have to trust the admins anymore. So the thing so cybersecurity by creating layers around everything
absolutely. Yep.
was the solution. But the problem is, I think that putting so many layers up, I think the cybersecurity departments are becoming at least as big as, if not larger than, the previous ops and dev departments. And you know, they're making they have so many layers in between each layer of the onion.
Yep.
That so it's not cheap. It's not free.
Nope.
So the reason I wanted to bring that up is just, you know, so you're prepared. Like
I've seen.
I could see it swinging the other way at
Yeah,
some point. I think at some point they're going to hit
I've
some number they're going to hit, or some
congestion, if you wanna
ratio,
call
or
it.
you know, and they're just going. Well, I'm sure cyber fights with the other departments in meetings and stuff.
Yes,
cyber
yes
says,
and no.
you
I mean,
say,
we
no, you
discussed-
can't do
yeah,
this.
No, you can't. Well,
And they say, well, that's the only way.
the thing is, now
we have this budget and these
now
resources.
we're entering an environment where we can't say no. Cyber is entering an environment where we cannot say no.
There it is.
We have to.
That's the pendulum swinging the other way.
We have to adapt
Yeah.
to technology as it's moving quicker and quicker. So, as you know, I'm in healthcare. There's telemedicine that's coming in.
Right.
There's IoT devices and stuff that we don't have security applications to monitor.
Right.
Alexa. A doctor puts Alexa in his office. Think about it. This is
a
happening.
disaster.
This is
Oh.
happening today. How do you secure
Don't
PHI?
do that.
No, but doctors want it. Listen, they're the ones bringing in the money.
Play Hall and Oates.
They get to call the shots, and
Tell
we
the world about my
are
patient's AIDS case.
Exactly. How do you secure that? How do
You don't.
Exactly.
It's closed source. It's completely.
We are.
It's connected to the entire
chasing
internet.
After I don't know, a ghost, whatever you want to say. We're chasing after
Yeah.
something that will
You're chasing your
never
own tail.
catch. Roadrunner. Beep beep. Right.
Well, there's no Internet of Things standardization at all.
Nope, none
and
at
it's
all.
gross. I mean, it's really gross because there's most of those devices run Linux. You know how many security flaws
Or
there are in
embedded
Linux?
They're like medical devices.
Yeah, there's
have
some embedded OSs, right?
Yeah.
But even then, you need a patch path for the duration
Right.
of it. If you're selling something that you expect to last for 20 years, you need a patch path for 20 fucking years.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of the vendors, because it was developed, like you said, 20 years ago, they are slow to come up with fixes because nobody needed them before.
Right.
And also the FDA regulates certain
Well, at least
medical
there's-
devices.
Well, at least there's some kind of regulation at all. Most devices aren't.
True.
Like Alexa, there's no
But
regulation
a
at
lot
all.
of times they don't want you to touch it. They're
Right.
like, oh, no, you can't put anything on this. It's like, but it's got a known vulnerability.
Right.
It's going to take down the hospital, but, okay, don't patch it, don't fix it, leave
Right,
it
right.
as is. Segment it.
Yep, that's
There
what
you
you have
go.
to do.
That's
The
the
only way
only
to
thing
do,
you
the
can
only
do.
thing is you segment
So
it. You put a
cutting
secure
it up.
machine in front of it, and you just hope nobody ever gets to the secure machine because it's toast. Yep. Yeah, that's my recommended policy for people at home if they're looking at security systems, because those do run Linux usually. Definitely don't put it on the internet, even if they offer it as a feature where you can log into your cell phone or whatever, or have it recorded to the cloud, or don't do that. Isolate it behind another device and secure the other device, and that way you don't have to worry about whether you're patching it well or not, because there have been security camera botnets.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. But do the common people know how to do all of this?
I kind of sidetracked you. You were talking more about, maybe not. Internet connection sharing and hotspots are becoming more familiar to people. I guess this is kind of the point of the show. So if you don't know what internet connection sharing is, that's where you have an isolated network that has a one single real facing IP to one network and has a subnet of fake IPs to another network. So, and what it does is it forces all the packets to go through the one machine, and you can typically firewall that machine. That creates a choke point where you have, where you're forcing all traffic that's going to go to this other network behind here. And it's very simple. Most people can do it. Most Windows, Linux. I don't know if OS X does it, but definitely I should know that because I guess I got another OS X machine just to answer that. And Android definitely do it. So if you're running any of those operating systems, you should be able to create a bridge machine. Remember, Raspberry Pi, $37. You can has two network ports. Plug one network cable in, the other one in, and you have an isolation for your machine. Make sure to patch the Pi though, because otherwise you defeat the purpose.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And of course, it sucks because now you have to hop in. It's not so easy to be able to view the videos on it. Whatever service they built into it, just don't use them. It's not worth it. It's not worth the risk, because you're literally putting a video of your most private stuff at risk of your private space. So I don't know. Is that fair? Am I being too paranoid?
I'm paranoid too. I struggle with my own backup process. You know,
Right.
I refuse to back up to the cloud, which makes more.
Awesome.
I'm sorry. I'm like, which means I buy more physical external hard drives.
I'm with you. I don't think so.
And
Well,
I have to take the time to back things up manually. I guess I could create synchronizations too, but I'm OCD in that respect.
Right, right.
It also forces me to purge files. I mean, things that I don't need to keep around forever. But then I get paranoid that, oh, this is a physical drive with a life of 5 years. What happens when that dies? You know?
Right, right.
So,
Well, typically you
all
can
these
safely double it on
administrative
average, and
tasks,
you'll
yeah.
probably be okay. But not as a policy in a company,
These are
but
administrative tasks that I think either maybe cause they're more time consuming than perhaps they should be. I wish I could just snap my fingers.
Well, so
type of
don't
thing.
feel too bad. So I thought I was I've had both sides of it. I've had people totally back me up and be like, "Yeah, putting anything in the cloud is suicide." It's
Talk about
all
my personal stuff.
Yeah, well, but
You can
no,
put the
but,
company stuff in the cloud. I'll help you secure that.
I'm not going to say which institution, but I've been in an institution where our redundancy strategy is, well, if it's that bad, humanity's doomed anyway. We don't care.
Humanity is doomed. We knew that walking in here. Humanity is doomed.
Is that why you got the dinosaur
reality.
mug? Yeah, with the
Yes,
dinosaur?
to remind me of where we're going.
Where we're going.
Facing extinction.
Hopefully later rather than sooner.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully.
At least there should be a first wave off the planet. Yeah, I'm sure there's other aliens who feel exactly the opposite about
Yeah.
that.
How old are your kids?
So they're 8 and 12. So
Okay, so maybe your 8-year-old will live to 60 and everything,
right.
and the weather will not change drastically.
or maybe they'll be off planet when
Oh, you're one of those.
Well, no, I mean,
Jetsons.
well, I mean, a space elevator is just a matter of materials, right? So, I mean, I'm a big nanotech guy. You haven't heard me talk about it too much here, but I've been at nanotech panels. I wrote a sci-fi book on nanotech. So, I mean, we're there. I mean, it's happening
Really?
now. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if my book hit the news tomorrow. Like, we're there. All the pieces that would possibly go public are public. So it's just the private pieces I don't know about. So in that sense, nanomaterials, I mean, they could do carbon nanotubules of human scale lengths, right? Talking about 1 nanometer, basically 1 molecule thick.
Okay.
And that's the material that you need to do a space elevator. So at that
What
point,
is a space elevator? I'm thinking.
Oh, you don't
of
know what a space?
Yeah, am I thinking
It's
like
exactly
is this like an elevator going into space?
when you take a bucket and you spin it around,
Yes.
and then the water stays in it.
Yes.
That's exactly what a space elevator is. You're literally building. The hardest part is building the initial cord, and it needs to be
Okay.
strong enough to hold the strength. But eventually, the spin of the Earth will hold the cable holding the space elevator all the way up into non-gravity affected space. And then you can literally just hop on an elevator and go up
And
go,
we'll live in. Yeah.
and once you do that, getting off the planet's easy, right?
But then how do you
don't have to waste
life and
you don't have to waste
food?
any energy getting materials or fuel or anything up there. So then it's just a matter of, okay, where do we go? Right, even without warp fields or any kind of unknown technologies.
I mean,
But you can do the experiments now for cheap because you can just get the stuff up there and, okay, let's build a spaceship. That's wrong, let's build another. It becomes building hot rods instead of building the most expensive thing a civilization's ever built, instead of building the pyramids. If building hot rods, you're going to get better hot rods.
first we have to get humanity to get all aligned and on the same page, and that's another thing.
So we are on the same page for some things.
Like what?
Like we all
don't
breathe,
see
we all eat.
We do.
Well, most people eat. Not everyone does. That's a problem. But I think for the most part, people see that as a problem, at least in the Western world. So this is subject of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yes.
So but we have that, right? That was the 60s. People forget that this stuff is pretty new.
Okay.
Psychology is pretty new. Marketing, the marketing application of psychology is pretty new. I mean, the really bad implication, the really bad application, the Nazis creating propaganda out of Freud stuff, basically. That's how that worked. Was not that long ago. we have these tools are all being built up so that we understand ourselves, and then we can understand, okay, it's hard to think about the bigger problems of humanity unless I have food in my belly and a roof over my head.
Right.
So, and I think
And sex. Don't forget, that's the bottom. Maslow's
Eventually.
pyramid. That's the base need right there.
No, that's not what I'm.
Food, sex, shelter.
No,
Yes, it is. I took psychology.
No, that wasn't one. Well, all
We
right.
have to propagate.
Sex is not in the pyramid. I'm pretty. Yeah, it's an important need to people, but maybe we could put it in there. That would be fun. But no. So like food, clothing, shelter, that kind of basic stuff. When you have that stuff out of the way, then you can start to think about other people. So we need to get the people on the planet to that point where they have food, clothing, shelter, and they know so long as they're part of society in at least some loose-fitting way, if they're trying to be part of society, they're going to get that stuff. And if we get to that point, I think then we.
But do you think everybody will be on board to want to live in space? I think that's where I was going with that.
Right. Well, so the question is, who do you send to space, right?
Exactly. And
so the easy answer is whoever the aliens pick, right?
Oh, come on.
or whoever the Matrix designates, or whoever God picks,
Or lottery.
whichever one of those supernatural things, right? But let's say it's up to us, right? That's probably the saner answer anyway. So if it's just us, we're trying to figure out who to send to space. It's a big question because then we have to quantify what we think good attributes of humanity are, and it's a slippery slope. It's really hard to determine that because what's good in one situation may be bad in another. A leader in one situation is a follower in another.
Absolutely.
Right.
Like
So
all of those zombie apocalypse type of things.
Right. That's a great example.
Lost and Walking Dead.
The first one to get eaten might be the corporate manager, right?
Exactly.
He was
Who
the
you
king.
thought was the leader.
He was the king in the old world, and he's fooling the new one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I love how in the movie Zombieland, you get this nerdy, puny protagonist who's he lives by five rules, right? To stay alive, and one of them is just kind of keep moving, keep running, stay active. You got to outrun them at some point.
Right.
I don't remember what the other four are, but each one made sense.
Right. Well, it was interesting because they had a really good commentary with Bill Murray, who was completely encased in zombies.
In his world, yeah.
He just used his acting skill,
but
he did it too good, and that's what. Sorry, spoilers. That's what got him killed, right? He just acted too well.
But that was his skill. That was his survival skill.
What?
1 month.
1 month. 1 month. Warned you.
Oh, that's been more than a month. That's how years now.
Yeah, it's been years. Yeah.
But
I bought it on DVD and watched it, so
DVD.
Yeah, I like DVDs. I keep physical copies of all the stuff that I listen to, that I watch.
I like CDs.
I have
I had to.
I have an Epic CD tower. I have an Epic. It's a spinning tower because it wasn't enough to have one dimension. I need a multi-dimension Epic CD tower. So
I beat that. I have a wall of CDs.
Nice.
I was a DJ. I don't know if you know that about me.
No, you're a DJ?
Yes, I was a DJ in my 20s.
No. You're always a DJ once you're a DJ.
Yeah, I guess you're right because I do still do parties.
Right.
But I don't know if we should be talking about that right now.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
It's
if you don't
something
mind,
I enjoyed
tell me
very
about
much.
What kind of music? Any kind of music, or?
When I spun in a club, it was 80s and punk.
Really?
And
Nice.
indie, 90s indie rock, I guess you would
That's
say.
awesome. How did I not know this about you?
I thought you did.
I didn't. That's why I love this show. I love this show. It's just so great.
I thought you did.
I hope you're
It's
enjoying this
something
as much as I am because this is awesome.
It's something I did, and again, I was a female doing a predominantly male thing, right? So I guess it was kind of hot. It was kind of cool. I just enjoyed the pleasure of playing the music that I love and sharing that, but also on a good night when people were dancing, there's some power that you have as
Right.
a DJ. You know what goes into what song, what'll make a smooth transition, and you know what'll get people really ecstatic to the point where there's more people coming on the floor, screaming, pipping, and then you know the ebb and the flow. Then you throw something slow on and they evacuate. You give them a chance to go get drinks at the bar.
Right.
So there's an art to it.
Nice, right. So, like, how do you know you were winning? How do you know you were doing the best?
Well, for
what was
me,
the best DJing?
Winning was
what was
having
the metric
fun.
for the best DJing?
Winning was having fun. There was no the metric was seeing
Conquest.
people having a good time.
Right.
You know, in '98 there was a place in Massapequa called the My Room Lounge that I spun at, and I got my own night. So maybe that was winning because
Nice.
then
That
it
is
was
winning.
just my stuff. I didn't, have to share winning.
Okay.
To me, winning is
There you go.
breathing and staying above ground. Okay,
Right.
when you think about
Don't be
it.
a zombie. Keep running.
Exactly. but sharing joys, like especially turning people on to music,
Right.
who they'll dig a song, they'll come up to me, they're like, "Who does this? Who's singing this? I want to get this."
Do you
It's
write any
exciting.
music or play any instruments or anything?
Unfortunately, no. I took violin for 3 years, and
Well, all right. Did you enjoy it?
I actually did enjoy it, but I was poo-pooed by my parents who didn't enjoy my practicing.
I played the drums. They
I
didn't
wish
like
I
it.
played the drums. My parents.
They did. Well, they
No.
blocked me when I was younger. Anyway, that's another story.
But I am a huge appreciator of music, all kinds.
Well, just knowing,
There's only good and bad.
just knowing
like
how to
Quincy
change
Jones says.
tempos and flow one song into another.
Right,
and,
the beat, the syncopation.
and knowing how to keep that
Right.
energy alive on the dance floor. That's tough. You know.
I don't think it's tough. I just
It
think
is.
it's something.
It is. There's a lot of bad DJs out there right now. Sorry, guys. There's a lot of bad DJs. in
I
New York
have
right
heard
now.
bad DJs. To me, the bad
If you
DJs
can go up to a
cut
DJ
it
and
up.
make recommendations and it always kills better than whatever the hell they're doing, that's a bad DJ.
Right. Or DJs who just don't know how to make it flow. Like you
Right.
can actually hear the end of the one song and the beginning of another, or just a cacophony. It's like they're playing them both at the same time.
Right.
And then there's one thing I never learned. I tried to beat match, but there's masters in electronica who can sample and beat match, and you're in
Well, the very
awe.
best of them became dubstep people, so like just writing their
Writing
own
their own
electronic
stuff.
music.
Then that becomes
Right, it becomes an entry to becoming a musician.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're creating something new.
It was like a whole new avenue that
wish.
nobody took into account. Were you like more focusing on your career at that point? Is that why you got away
No,
from? I feel like if you had kept in it, you would have like gone further. That's why.
I think with the DJing, it was getting in the way of my waking up in the morning and going to my real job.
Oh, you were moonlighting.
I was moonlighting. Of course, I couldn't.
Okay.
I mean, I got paid for my DJ gigs, but I couldn't make it on the money I was paid. It was, especially one night a week. It was an act of love. It was something that
I think everybody, the best gift you can give your kids. Especially if they're smart. Everyone thinks their kids are smart, so I can't really quantify that in any way. But it's not, everyone's kids are smart, but everyone thinks their kids are smart. But especially if your kids are smart, the best gift you can give your kids is just to give them a little bit of space to experiment and to try to find themselves and be what they want to be.
I
try
agree.
a little of this,
I
try
agree.
a little of that.
Experience.
I mean, like look at Steve Jobs. He spent all this time on typeface. How stupid is
font?
that?
Really?
On fonts. And that was one of the keys to his success with Apple.
That's why it's beautiful.
That's why it's beautiful, because he spent so much time on aesthetics.
Interesting.
So he was a technical-minded person, but he spent a lot of time on aesthetics, and then that lent itself to a whole other computer platform that
That's interesting.
competed with the international technical monster that was IBM. That wasn't easy to do.
No, not at that time.
And it's because
Absolutely.
it's because he was a polymath and he had specialties in different fields. So I'm a huge fan of that.
I wish I was. I consider
we're
myself.
going to start a polymath line on the show.
Let's do it. Oh,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Yeah, because I mean we just have technocrats in the past, and it's time for some polymaths. So.
Well, I consider myself, I wouldn't say polymath, but a Renaissance person.
Right, that's what I'm talking about.
I
think that's
take
polymath.
it-
I'm probably abusing the word. I could hear someone yelling at me in my head right now, but
No,
I think that's the right
no
usage.
wrong. But I mean, I switched careers too. I switched majors. I switched careers. I'm a curious person. So
What was your original
would
major?
say I went to school twice, but I first majored in communication.
Okay.
And English.
Mm-hmm.
And I love languages. Being that Greek, I learned Greek and English at the same time.
Right.
So I had an ear for.
Can you flip like this?
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. But you could
Not
at one point,
anymore.
or?
Yeah, at one point. In fact, my father had to stop speaking to me in Greek because my relatives didn't understand. My American relatives couldn't understand me.
Right.
So then in 7th grade, I selected Italian as a language because you were supposed to pick up on a foreign language.
Right.
And I selected that because my mother is Italian and she wanted me to learn the heritage, even
Makes
though I had
sense.
no one to speak with.
Right.
But I excelled there. I actually won a few awards. I continued with Italian until college. So I was almost pretty fluent there too. Reading in Italian and understanding stories.
Right.
Then, because I wanted to expand my horizons in high school, I picked up on French. So I took a little bit of French too. And I always thought I was going to go the route of being like a diplomat or working for the UN as a translator and traveling.
Wow, that's interesting.
I wanted that. But then when I had to pick a major in college, it became a little bit tougher. And having a very
It's a better market
Control-
for jobs and computers.
in the 90s. Oh yeah, that was definitely now, but you know, when I was in school in the 90s, my father just wanted me to have a job and he felt like business was the way to go. So he
that's right, you had a business major originally,
Exactly.
yeah.
You know this. So
Right.
that's where I first learned failure because I'm sorry. It sucks that it had to happen that way, but it is.
Yeah.
I have to. I'm going to brag a little bit.
I failed really well. I'm a pro at failing. I'm the best failure of all.
Yes, and I will fail again and again.
I'm right there with
and
you.
again.
I'm there with you. That's how I know.
So yeah, that was the. It was, I hated to disappoint my father, but God damn it, try as I might, I couldn't get an A in macroeconomics, microeconomics, and all that boring shit that I didn't even comprehend at the time. You know why? Because it was just an abstract theory in a book, and it made no sense in the real world. When I graduated and I got into the business world, then it was like, aha! Oh,
Yeah,
now I know why they made me study management and marketing and all this stuff because now it makes sense. But you know,
Does that help you, having that background?
I think it does. It actually
Great.
pounding that management
relevant.
stuff. It is. I mean, you educate yourself no matter what. Whether you get a degree, a diploma, it doesn't matter because reading a book should stay with you. You know, experiencing something that should stay with you. It's all learning and education, as long as you take it the right way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I guess I don't want to go on.
Well,
and
you
on
got to
and
take everything
on.
with a grain of salt, right? You know.
Right. That's true nowadays too. With
Well, but
the sources of where you're.
So the thing is,
Reading.
on the one hand you have sources, right? On the other hand you have, so it's great to, the principle is simple. You're just letting other people, smart people who have figured stuff out, show you what they figured out,
Yeah.
and it saves you a lot of
Yeah.
time, right? But on the other hand, there's a risk, and this is something that continues to confound me, and it amazes me that people I'm like, I thought you were science people. I just want to yell at people sometimes. Is that some people are liars.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and also sometimes things are missed. Things are complicated or expensive or hard to replicate, and things get missed. And so facts, things that are treated as facts, can be very, very thin.
Like, give an example.
Like leeches. Leeches were hard science at one point.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Used to cure, or, put,
And
or
so
draw blood.
exposing people to disease through intentionally infecting them was hard science at one point. The ether,
God.
space being filled with the ether, was hard
Right.
science at one point.
Right.
So the
funny.
science fails.
It's so funny, yeah.
And sometimes it's wrong, and that's it's just it's not that science never fails. I don't want to say that science fails, but
It's
the thing is,
an interpretation at that time.
right. It's just like this is the best that we can do experimentation wise. It isn't necessarily a lack of rigor. Sometimes it's just a lack of just statistics, just numbers, just having enough experimental opportunities, right? Not every experiment's easy. Some experiments are unethical. It's not really ethical to
Absolutely.
experiment
You're
on
right.
people, right? So you can only work with the
But it
data you've got. You
happens.
don't really have a good control.
Correct.
Sometimes it's expensive to reproduce experiments like in, say, particle physics. So there's a lot of maybes in particle physics. That's why
Yeah.
everyone's still arguing over string theory. So a lot of people are still arguing over the quantum stuff because So yeah, I mean, I like those examples because they're old and they're things that people can easily understand. But there are
Right.
newer ones too.
Right, of course. We're living it somewhere in our lives.
Right, and once in a while, another thing, like people tend to trust authority a lot. People tend to
let's go
trust
with this.
the justice system and the police a lot. And usually they're honest. Usually they're doing a good job. Usually they're doing their best job. But sometimes genetics exonerates someone who is a slam dunk conviction. What happened there? Yeah, maybe that's the little sign that the system's not as perfect as
Right.
people hoped it was.
Right.
So I mean, there's plenty of examples of that, right? So yeah, I mean, I think you kind of
Oh, yeah, now I get it. I get what
I'm
you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of people are like, oh yeah, we all established. We're all working off the same established facts, and actually, I think the right thing to do is to encourage people, well, find out the fact-finding process and replicate it for yourself. Not every time, because it's too expensive to do it every time. You go crazy. You go crazy and you go broke. But just pick one here and there. And then if you find someone's their integrity is low, move on. That would be what I would say.
Right. There's a lot of liars.
If there's
You're
a
right.
lot of liars, psychopaths are 1 to 3% of the population, and that's pretty hard
Oh,
science.
jeez.
They lie.
Oh my God.
They're not.
That means I might have dated one.
Probably. There's for sure. There's been some in some of your
Probably.
classrooms.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, and I'm not trying to be mean, and I'm not trying to harp on this, but I mean, this is like what we were talking about before with sexual harassment and the propensity for people on the spectrum, on the autistic spectrum, to be in IT. Well, people on the autistic spectrum sometimes stare at girls, and next thing you know, everybody's litigious and everybody's got a lawyer and HR's involved and it's a whole hoopla, when you could have just cracked a joke and they would have went, oh, I'm staring? Because they didn't know.
Because they didn't realize it.
Right.
Stating the obvious to anybody, spectrum
Right.
or not, is sometimes disarming, I guess.
Right.
It's sometimes necessary to state the obvious.
To me, society is the space in which we all find a middle ground. So yeah, I mean, like I'm kind of coming back around to that thing you were saying before about like, is humanity doomed? Are we all screwed?
Maybe I'm just cynic now.
Well, no. I mean, but like, I think yes, we could totally burn out and fail for sure. That failure is on the table. But I also really think that we could succeed. Like one of the things, like a lot of people like to talk about climate change. I'm sorry, I don't want to get too political, but
No, it's okay.
a lot of people are, I'm going to say something that doesn't really matter whether you think climate change is being accurately represented by the majority of the scientific community or not. It doesn't really matter. To me, the real measure is if you can measure predictable results. Like if you can say, okay, we're going to be at this and we're going to be at that later. Like prediction is a very powerful mechanism to determine if someone understands a problem, right? If they can make predictions. They don't have to be dead bang on, but they should ballpark at least some of the time. And if they don't ballpark, you should be able to explain why. So if you can ballpark things, then you can work on geoengineering. And there are geoengineering methodologies that are safe. Like one of my favorites is sea salt spraying. So the thing that comes to my mind whenever anybody's talking about climate change is not whether it's real or not, is, hey, can we come up with some metrics to do sea salt spraying? Right? You say it's going to go up 2 degrees, so we know we have a baseline. We know what we know what the expectation over 20 years is going to be. So let's try to bring it back down half a degree over 5 years, and we know how much reflection we're going to need. What sea salt spraying does is it sprays seawater up into the air, and then it reflects sunlight off the planet, and the net effect is cooling the planet. It doesn't really have any effect on, if you do it in a tight enough area, it can saturate the air, so it's just like you're creating a little more cloud cover, but not a lot more.
There's a lot of
it's a fairly safe thing to do.
Understood. There's a lot of safe solutions out there.
Right.
Even in cleaning up our waters of plastic.
I've done that like 8 times. Sorry.
You gotta fix the paper in it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, keep going.
Even in cleaning our oceans of plastics, I've seen, through some reels, there's startups that are they're trying to do something. So all right,
You don't have to wait.
Let me dial it back.
In the Linux space, do we wait for people to tell us to do it?
When I was once very optimistic, I used, if somebody asked me, do I believe in God? I used to say, I believe in man. Meaning, if we can dream it, we can do it.
Right.
And that could go either way. We can do good or we can do bad.
Right.
And I hope that we do good. I've seen so much.
So you're not
good.
you're not our fate is in our stars, it's in ourselves. You're in an ourselves person instead of in our stars. That famous quote from Caesar, our fate is not in our from Julius Caesar, from the play from Shakespeare. Our fate is not in our stars but in ourselves. So you're in our ourselves camp.
I guess so.
Yeah, okay.
I guess so. Yeah, right. I don't know, yes and no. It depends on the day that you get me. For the most part, I do feel like we drive our destiny.
Right.
But then there's the kismet serendipity moments when you're just like, wow, there's a force that's aligning with me.
Right.
But
it's weird, right?
Yeah, it is. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
I think some of that's
these wondrous moments, and
I think some of that really is
I wanted
humans.
to say achievements such as man going to the moon.
Right.
If you believe in that, I do.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I believe that.
I'm ready to fight over that one.
We had a computer with what? How many? What was it? A couple kilobits. Very short memory, a small memory in this. Very large supercomputer that sent astronauts up into space, and to me that's just wonderful. Who did that? We did that.
Right.
So marvels like that show me that we can dig ourselves out of this hole that we're in.
We did that bottom up. That wasn't even top-down programming. That was bottom-up programming. That's the harder kind of programming.
There has to be incentives and motivation, the right type.
Right.
But there are people out there who are trying to make change. Sea salt spraying or just. I don't know. I mean, there's so much out there. There's other countries that are trying different technologies, reusing, recycling, not wasting as much. Minimalism is the trend now, and I'm actually trying to get on that wagon because I have acquired so much and accumulated all those CDs.
Well, at some point it becomes practical.
My wall of CDs? Do I need them? You know,
Right,
these are
right.
the things. What if I just, you know, go to SoundCloud or Pandora? My music's there,
Right.
but I like touching it, the tangible, the aesthetic. So,
Right,
you know, we're caught in this.
Yeah, I thought I was pulling rank on you with my CD tower. I had no idea.
CDs. And then what about records?
It's a very big CD tower.
I also love vinyl. Or LPs, I'll call them.
Right.
I inherited my my aunt Laura's collection, and my mother gave me her collection.
Wow.
Mostly from the 1940s, 50s, and 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Just real classic music. There's nothing like listening to Peggy Lee on a Sunday. That's all I gotta say.
Nice.
You know, stuff like that. I feel like I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose the sound that the record makes when the needle hits it. That little pop hiss.
Yeah.
You don't get that with the electronic
well, I
age.
bet this is, you're talking about synchronicities. I think a lot of humanity's successes come from our own minds and our own subconscious, and a lot of that comes from emotional memory and,
Yes.
and remembering when you feel the way you felt, it brings you to a place that you've maybe not been before in a while, at least not in a rational way, maybe in your dreams, but not when you're awake. And actually you can create a larger scope of intelligence by creating a mood with music, you know, or a mood with anything.
Absolutely.
You know, you can set paths for yourself that maybe you wouldn't have set on your own. So
I often wonder how, I guess the millennials view things that came before them, or things from our generation.
Right.
Some of them, when they discover it, they just cling to it and they try to emulate it.
Mm-hmm.
There's some great bands in Brooklyn that are probably playing now that sound exactly like Duran Duran.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, how is it that they sound so... Oh, because they never experienced Duran Duran, but they picked up an album, they enjoyed the music,
Right.
and now this is the kind of music they want, to offspring.
Right.
So it's crazy. And Nirvana, how about the waves Nirvana made?
Right.
That blows my mind, because when I was
great story
experiencing
about
it
that.
from the 90s, I thought it was just another band of the time. I
Right.
never thought that
they were
become-
cleader the genre leader at the time. They made
Beatles.
the 90s basically.
and afterwards. So.
Yeah. So they actually I went on a cross country trip. I bring this up every episode,
Yep.
something different.
I do too, but
did?
in 2000. Yeah,
Oh,
we
thank
talked about
God.
this.
We
So,
did?
a little bit. We have talked about this because I asked you what route you went, and I told you how I went south and then came through the middle.
Maybe I was asking you where you went so that I could figure out what I was going to do. So you did tell me
at some
yours, but I
point.
hadn't done mine yet.
Yeah, but you actually had a lot longer than I did. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I had to
we
do it
did
in a
our
month.
honeymoon in New Zealand. It was brutal.
Awesome.
It was just like
Oh,
boom, 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 and it was like, oh, this sucks. Let's not do that again. So I had the time.
Yeah,
you know,
this time,
I had
right.
the time this time. So, and we ended up in Aberdeen, Washington. That's
Ooh,
where
I've never been.
Kurt Cobain
Yep, the home
grew
of
up,
him.
and that's where he nurtured himself. That nurtured him into becoming. They love him there.
Yeah, and is it like a
They have
dirt-
Kurt Cobain quotes
Of
up
course,
on plaques
of
and
course.
stuff, and
Is it still that dirgy type of environment? I think of it being like.
I don't even want to say too much because I don't want to give it away because it's like magical.
I've seen so
it
many
really is like
documentaries,
I didn't even
but-
think I like grunge that much, and it's really magical being there.
Yeah,
it's really
yeah.
like, I mean, it's kind of like it can be dark and gloomy and foggy,
Yeah.
and it can be sunny, but so the mood changes, but it's always good. People are silly and fun there. I really liked it.
Parallel that with Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
And how their music came about in an industrial, dirgy type
Yeah.
town.
Yeah.
And it's so heavy, their sound too. So, you can
that's
parallel
funny.
that.
Yeah, that's weird.
Where you grow up and what you see, it makes you.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I always don't.
Well, people are a product of their time.
I don't like to admit that I'm from Long Island a lot of times.
Right.
North Shore, but it made me. You know,
Yeah.
it definitely molded me in certain ways.
So I actually wrote science fiction on this, talking about how I forget what book it was now. Sorry, whoever the author was, I apologize.
I know what you
But
mean.
talking about the advantages to suburbia and the frustration, just like the Puritans' frustration with sex.
Yes.
Yeah, it creates like this kind of work ethic drive that sometimes makes a society more successful. You know,
true.
being stuck in suburbia and not being able to
Right.
travel just motivates you to succeed. You're like, I need to have a good car and good insurance and fuel always, or I'm doomed. And there's a budget that goes with that, and
For me,
it lights
it was
a fire on your ass.
For me,
to
it
put
was
in
I
the
have to
wrong
get
way.
out of this town and brush this town off my. It was the whole "It's a Wonderful Life" syndrome, where I got to get out of Bedford Falls, and I never
A car
got
is
out.
freedom. Actually,
Yeah.
it's funny. This is going to be really weird because it's going to seem like I'm maybe kissing a little butt here, but I'm not. I swear I'm not. So I actually read Dee Schneider's book.
Cool.
He wrote a book about dealing with being a teenager.
On Long Island.
On Long Island.
Oh, I should read
when
it.
it was a whole chapter about just isolating yourself in your car. And honestly, I was like, yeah, that's it right there. When you're fighting with your family, you get in your car and you just drive around the block, and they don't know where you are. Because, of course, this is before cell phones, so now they can just call you. But it worked then.
Right.
And that's it. You can be alone, and you have time to cool off and think about and meditate and, maybe read a book or something. And it was awesome advice, and it was very helpful. It got me out of trouble a couple times. So, but you need money. You need to keep a car. So I substituted.
I took a bicycle. For me, it was all right. I don't have a car. Bike as far from my mom as I can get right now.
We biked all over Nassau County. It was crazy. We bicycled all over the place. It was the amount of bicycling we did was. Seriously, like our parents would have plots if they realized how far we went. We made it to Queens.
But
we made it halfway into Suffolk.
Wasn't that exciting too? Because you are crossing that line.
Awesome.
You are like, ooh, I'm not supposed to go past here, but I'm gonna blow it, and she's not gonna. They're not gonna know.
Right.
And then you just return home for dinner. What did you do? Nothing.
Went around the block, went over to 7-Eleven, got a
Went to the
Slurpee.
library, but meanwhile you had your own adventure,
Yeah.
and you got to reset.
Right. Yeah. Well, but that's part of what growing up is. The kids are always testing the boundaries. Just like the infant throws their cereal on the ground. When you're a teenager, you're like, yeah, I don't care what you say. I'm going to be on the hook for myself in 2 years. I better work this out. Yeah. So it's funny. Kids don't realize that. Everybody's been a kid at one point and kind of gone through these things.
No, they don't. It's so true. You always think you know something that your parents don't know.
Right. And then you get a little older. You go, oh yeah, they knew what I was doing. Not everything, though. Most
Not
things.
everything.
Not everything. Most of it. So that was kind of a crazy
tangent.
That was a great. You realize that we have been talking for an hour and a half.
All right.
And I haven't even done my intro yet. See, you were worried. You were worried.
Go ahead.
I have this catharsis with every guest, and they're like, I don't know if I'm going to make it 3 hours. And like halfway through, I tell them we're halfway through, and they're like, what?
Okay, yeah. I'm just hanging in.
Okay, cool. How are you doing? Do you need a break or?
No, I'm okay. I'm
all
good.
right,
Yeah,
cool.
I might take some water.
All right.
Because my mouth is dry.
Yeah. You need to.
Do you need a cup, Matt? Need a cup of water?
Yeah, actually, that wouldn't be bad. Thanks.
Gotcha.
Yeah, better than not wet my whistle with booze the whole night.
That's a bad attitude. That is not the winning attitude.
Winning.
Winning, right? I have winning. Winning is on the chart here, right here. Winning! Exclamation point.
Winning at life.
It's great to be a technocrat. Please drink with me. Oh no.
Sippy sip.
Okay. All right, so this is the show where we try to turn all of our guests to alcoholics, but mainly it just.
I think I'm already there.
It just does it to me.
Actually, I'm not alcoholic. I'm a wino.
Nice.
Wine is fine.
Yeah, I have. I know people who are winos. Yeah, it's interesting how wine is a different.
It's different, but it's slow creeping in.
I
It's
just
a
can't-
nice warm
I
bath.
just don't want to do beer anymore. You got to like commit to a
Yeah.
6-pack just to get started. You
Yeah,
know.
beer's too much of a gut.
Yeah, but wine, yeah.
Wine is something for the evening.
You know, you
after
drink
a
anything
tough
more
day.
than 40 proof, you could feel the cancer growing. You know,
or you
you know.
feel your liver.
You feel your liver just
overworking.
squeaking like a beaten dog. You know, running into the backyard.
I dread to think of what my 60s and 70s are going to be like if I live that long. But I think everything's going to catch up with me at some point.
All right. I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a prepper. So preparation, right? Thinking about doom, right? My paranoia. I'm actually less of one now than I ever was before. I never mentioned this before in the show. So I could actually talk about, have you seen my van before? You've seen my van at picnics, right?
I don't recall it.
That's the van I brought cross country. I never told my I did tell a cross country story.
I have to see a picture.
So the van is like it's this epic 4x. It's huge.
It's huge.
It's an
okay.
epic 4x4 van.
If you're going to take it cross country.
Yeah, and we had boxes in the back with tools, and we used all of it, everything. I thought I was being paranoid when you really used all of it.
No, you need camping stuff and everything.
Right. So and tools actually was the thing I needed the most to fix stuff as we went along.
As you went. Fix the van.
Just little stuff.
Fix the van.
The van's new. A lot of stuff. Some of the stuff was still under warranty.
Okay. Oh, that's
but
not
like
bad
stuff
then.
just like I added so much stuff on. Some of that stuff broke. Some of the stuff in the trailer broke. Minor repairs. And it's so easy
always
to
good
fix
to
this.
have tools and gear, right? Isn't that what
Right.
geeks do? They live by their gear.
I may have segued too much because I don't know what the heck I was talking about being a prepper. Oh yeah, so
Doomsday?
I learned a lesson, right? First, I was very skeptical about the 2012 thing, partly because I was part of the remediation of it. So I had we had a really good idea technically what was involved. And I'm like, this isn't going to go global. This isn't going to turn into a pandemic or a collapse or anything. There's going to be spotty outages and then it's going to be over. There's been too much attention on it. But like, I am into macroeconomics, and they scare the crap out of me. The more you understand them, the more they scare you.
Glad I don't.
Yes.
I turn a blind eye.
It might be a blessing. The more you understand about
Plain
how money
ignorance.
works, the more you're like, but I learned something.
I know a little.
After spending a little too much money here and a little too much money here and having too much leftover junk here, I'm like, the first prep is always normalcy. Prepare for things to just continue on a normal vector where there's no surprises.
I have a contingency plan in some cases, but I don't prepare long term.
Right.
Is that
But
what you're saying?
but it doesn't even matter what your preparation strategy. It doesn't matter if all you've got is like a 1 gallon of water and a 10 pound bag of rice and a 10 pound bag of beans and a go bag, and that's all you do. And that's really, honestly, that's more than most people. And it costs like $150, and they're like, the Red Cross is like, do that. They're literally like, they have commercials where they do that.
We told you so.
We told you so. We're not coming for you until after you use that stuff up. So, people are like, oh my God, you didn't get the go bag. So, but you have to. The first prep is always normalcy, and that means living a happy, normal, long life. I think we're going to be living into the hundreds. I don't know how to tell you this. So if you're planning on checking out at 60, you're going to be using a suicide booth a la Futurama because
that could be a possibility.
So possibly you should be here any day now based on the Futurama timeline.
I want to be a head in a jar.
Really?
I really do.
Really?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Live forever. Just my
your
brain.
first prep is being a head in a jar. I would vote for you to be one of the select heads in a jar.
Keep me in a jar.
Nice.
But I tend to agree with you, I guess, for most people, but I just have this feeling, I don't know.
Yeah. He's something.
I feel like I've
something's gonna go-
abused myself. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I mean, robots are scary,
Hunter S.
singularity
Thompson
scary.
said, your life should be like, you use up everything. You just go, and
you're just a
your
husk at the
body
end.
should be ragged and.
Isn't he the one? Isn't he Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas?
Yes, he is.
Steve just made me watch that, so I watched it.
Read the book.
Read the book?
the book. I mean,
I watched it with my wife, and she's
Terry
like,
Gilliam-
"What the fuck is this?"
Terry Gilliam did a phenomenal job of recreating the book, but
Yeah.
you need to read the book.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
all right.
So he,
No,
but,
you
I
got-
mean,
yeah.
that quote isn't from that particular book. It is a Hunter S. quote, but it's the way you attack life, and I think that's how I do sometimes, not with caution. It's sort of
Right.
like, let's
With-
do this. Let's see what the fuck happens. Oh, maybe I break something.
Hey,
maybe.
is that a delightful swimming pool or a vat of acid? Vat of acid! But usually it's a swimming pool, right? Most of the time it's a swimming pool.
Maybe, yeah.
Right. See, I'm definitely in. I just want to be the second person to jump in.
I
right?
got you.
Wait a
That's
minute for the blood
That's
curdling
why I like
screams.
you. That's why I like you. Right?
Matt's not going in that. Wait.
never-
He knows something. Wait, let's watch and see what happens. Because it's nothing. Because then you get the good laugh and you get to enjoy the full acid burning smell without it happening to you.
Jeez.
Where did I come up with that? What is it? Can you tell I
How
write
you apply
sci-fi?
patches? You don't apply the first. You wait a couple of weeks when the patch is released.
Right.
You wait till everybody else jumps into the pool.
Right? No, that
And-
totally.
no,
Actually, so that's a really that's an
Analogy,
excellent.
right.
No, that's a serious patch strategy. We would, it was there was a sense of urgency around
Right,
0 days.
Critical patches.
But the
they need to
urgency
be rolled
wasn't-
out, but you
wasn't-
got to watch what you're doing.
It wasn't always the urgency wasn't always to roll it out. The urgency was to figure out when to roll it out
Yep.
and what to roll it out on
Yep.
because you could do more damage trying to fix it.
Absolutely. Like Meltdown Inspector, I think you have to change microcode. And changing microcode means you slow down the performance of the PC.
So what's Meltdown Inspector? I don't know what that is.
Meltdown Inspector are these Intel chip vulnerabilities.
Oh, okay.
So obviously they're affecting every server.
Oh, is that the one that just came out like a few
It
weeks
came out
ago?
a year ago. Actually,
see, I'm thinking
it was
I'm
on
not
the
talking about the-
horizon even prior to that.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I'm thinking of the one that came out a few weeks ago. That was
It came
zombie
out
something.
over a year ago.
Yeah, okay.
It came out around right after WannaCry came out and
Right.
hit big. Then that was on the tail of it, and then Petya, not Petya, came out.
Mm-hmm.
So, but in between, we were trying to figure out, what do we do? Do we try to install the new patch and now I'm a little buzzed, so I'm trying to remember the specific vulnerability. I'm like,
Best excuse you ever had. See, I helped you out there.
Exactly, you did. I believe it was administrative access. Oh, I'm going to sound like an idiot, I know, but at any rate, we had to.
Don't get too detailed, and then it's fine.
Right.
Then you're safe.
Well, the point is, when we tested the patch, it created such lag that the performance was degraded. So we realized we cannot do this.
Right.
No,
you tested and it didn't work.
6%, 10% degradation is going to affect the company on a whole.
Right.
So then you have to accept a risk.
Right.
Right.
And yeah.
I mean,
Well,
every
sometimes
company
sometimes the
faces
right way to
this.
do it is to do the patch, but you could just block a port, shut down a service, redirect something, put it in the
But this
private network.
it affects the processor.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right. So how did you get started in computers? What got you into computers?
that is a very good question. I'm glad you asked me because I was prepared to answer you.
Yes.
I had
We usually do that at the beginning, but I don't know why we got an hour and a half
I had
in.
to think back how I really got into computers, and I could talk to you about things, events that occurred along the way in my life, but as a kid, My father loves his electronic gadgets. He always was buying, I call them toys, you know, whether it was
Walkmans.
a new radio, a recorder where he presses the recorder. He's like, as a child, he's like, talk into that. He actually has recordings of me, and I was watching the tape spin in there and
Right.
figuring out the buttons. Or he brought home a Casio electronic keyboard,
Right.
and he plays by ear, but you know, I was just playing there.
Interesting. So your father's a musician.
You know what? He wouldn't
It
call
just-
he wouldn't call himself a musician,
If he
but
could
he
play
is.
by ear.
He could play. He plays the keyboard by ear and the accordion, like he did it in the old country. I've never seen him here do it.
Right.
But then getting into games and toys, I was a huge Atari person.
Yeah. Which Atari was
my
your first one?
cousin, the 5200, and I still have it. But
Nice.
my male cousin came for a visit from Greece when we were young. I don't even remember, 3rd grade. I don't know when the hell it was. But he came for a visit, and they wanted to buy him a gift. So they bought him an Atari gaming system to bring back and a couple of games. And I had envy. I was like, what has he got that I don't have? How come, you know, what is it? And I think that, honestly, I think that is how I ended up in a lot of this field, because it was like, anything a boy can do, I can do. Math, I can do that.
George Carlin thinks the foundation for human civilization is envy. So he's probably not wrong.
No,
There's
he's probably
some
not.
truth
And
to
I
that.
do love George Carlin.
Yeah, he's awesome, man.
He was, you know, but so I spent Saturdays playing Atari when I should have been doing chores that my mother laid out for me.
Right.
And so I love that. But you know, bring it to 5th grade, they got computers in the school. We only got 2, and it was like the spring semester in 5th grade. Commodore. I don't remember if it was a Commodore PET or a Commodore 64, but you had to sign in when you got to get to play the games, and they
Nice.
had some pretty cool math games. But anyway, you know, I had regular computing in school, and I took BASIC and Pascal.
Did you ever play Oregon Trail?
No.
Oh, okay.
My first PC that was actually my own, that I did not use for the school. This is a good story.
Okay.
So we were moving out of the dorms in Albany, and I was in the towers. I don't know if you know Albany State University. There's 4 quads, and they're about 22 stories high.
Okay.
So moving in day and moving out day means a lot of going up and down in the elevators. You know, every student has their parents lugging crates and whatnot. So on the last day, I was moving into a summer sublet or something like that, and there was this computer going up and down in the elevator all day. It was just, honestly, somebody left it in the elevator. And as I was going up and down and moving my stuff into the car or whatever, I see this PC's there, and I'm like, isn't this anybody's? And on my last go down, I'm like, you know what? I don't have a computer. I want to take this computer. So I fucking stole
You stole
that
your first computer. All right, hacker power.
And
now you work in security.
So then, wait, I plug it in, exactly. I plug it in. I get it to my new apartment.
I've heard of dumpster diver, but elevator diving?
Nobody was claiming it. It was up and down all day. I think what happened was somebody, in a haste to get out, their mommy and daddy probably was like, let's go. And they probably left it there and didn't come back.
They're going to find you now. They're going to see this video and find you.
I welcome you too.
You started an IT career, a flourishing one. Good job.
It was an IBM PS2.
Wow.
If you know what that is.
Yes, I do. PS2s were pretty awesome.
It was
back in
from
the
the
day.
time. I plugged it in and black screen. So I'm like, oh, is it broken? I didn't know. So I read up on stuff. Oh, you need an operating system for the light to go like this.
Wait. Computer? Computer.
I thought you just powered it up. and
Use the keyboard.
I thought it was going to be like in the labs, the VAX terminals. I just thought it was going to be something like, no, I wasn't that silly, but I'm like, well, there's nothing on here, so I went to CompUSA, and I spent my allowance on DOS 6.0, I think was out at the time. All the floppy disks that you had
Microsoft
to.
DOS or IBM DOS? I think
IBM DOS. It was
Nice.
IBM DOS because it's not Microsoft.
I knew to ask.
And I knew what I remember. I have all the disks still. This is why I told you, show and tell.
Yep.
And you had to feed them in a sequence, one at a time. And lo and behold, I
Had a PS2?
had a PS2 operating system. But the operating system was just command line, right?
Right.
So now I wanted to use Windows. Oh, fuck, I got to go back to CompUSA and buy a Microsoft product.
Right.
And I put it on top of
What
that.
version of Windows was that? Was that 2?
No, I think it was 3.1 at the time.
Nice. Oh, okay. So
I'm pretty sure it was 3.1.
nice.
And then
So that's a pretty good experience. then.
Yeah, that was. I mean, for the longest time, I just had
Decade plus without Windows on DOS.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So well, I did a lot with DOS. I mean, I learned about making directories and files, but then mostly it was gaming. I guess I bought whatever DOS games on disc that I could
Did
find.
you have the flight simulator?
No, I had one that was like Indiana Jones type of thing. 'Cause what was it called?
No,
not Doom.
Load Runner.
It might be something.
Load Runner had
I
a
don't
version
remember the
for
name,
PS.
but it was you kind of go look
Borland.
for these little.
Yeah, Borland Load Runner. Yeah, they were the ones that made Load Runner.
That might have been it.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
That was one of the best games.
I'm definitely hazy on.
There was,
that.
I could also. I had a 286, and I had an EGA card, but of course there was a very limited pool of games.
Right.
So I know most of them. That's why I was asking.
Good.
Flight Simulator, Load Runner.
Because I mean, it wasn't. I know it wasn't flight, but I enjoyed the Indiana Jones type Load
Runner. Yeah.
I think that might
It was
have
like
been
Pitfall almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you know
Yeah,
exactly
yeah,
what
it's
I'm
Load
talking
Runner.
about. Wow. And it's been a long time since I played. Oh, I have like a little special memory in my heart.
Especially
about
my
that.
microphone. Oh no! On the phone.
I have a special memory in my heart about doing that. And that was like 93 or something.
Right.
But
That was
but
a
then
pretty slow machine at that point.
I upgraded it.
They might have left it.
I upgraded it.
They might have left it there on purpose.
Yes, I upgraded it.
So don't feel too guilty.
Went online or I didn't go online. What am I saying? I went again. It was always me buying it from CompUSA, but I think I
Right.
bought the RAM and I.
Did you go 386 or
It was a 386.
you went 386?
Yeah.
Did you play Doom on that?
No, I didn't play Doom. I've never played Doom. I know. I have
really?
I have no geek cred because I've never played Doom.
Do you do any first-person shooters or?
Not really. I tried Call of Duty, but yeah, he's laughing over there. Laugh. Go ahead.
Maybe
Duty isn't a good starting point.
Well, I played. I guess I'm not into the first.
I'll tell you the truth.
I'm more into the Pac-Man.
I jumped
Yars Revenge.
straight to a 486 from a 286.
Okay. Oh, good.
So I went from basically all like simple side scrollers like Load Runner.
Using the arrow keys.
Oh, there were first person games that they were very good. I had a vet game that was I had
I had a mystery game. Like you go
what the
into
heck was
each
that?
room in the house, I think, and you get a clue.
What's that? What was the name of that test pilot that went to speed of sound for the first time?
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he had a game.
Fact checker.
he had a game named after him, and that was a flight simulator. But back then, a flight simulator was, because I had an EGA card, it was 16 colors instead of 4, but it was just lines, just lines, mountains of line. One of the best ones I had was Apache, and that was lines for mountains, lines for the occasional tree, and lines for tanks.
Ooh.
Yeah, and lines for camps, which were just like
how
teepees.
slow did it move? Did it like just
That was
go
it
like
was
this?
it was like 6 to 8 frames a second. It
Okay.
wasn't bad, it was
Oh, all right.
watchable. It was playable. I spent a lot of time playing that,
Exactly.
arming Hellfire
So-
missiles, learning the difference between sidewinders, and
So games is what got me into playing with computers, but then there was actually a point in my life when I jettisoned careers. So as I mentioned, I went to Albany, I studied I started with business, didn't get into the business school, ended up with a communication and rhetoric major and English minor. Then I pursued a career. I wanted to be a writer. Journalist, writer.
Really?
Yeah.
what were we gonna write about? Just journalism, like
Rock
news.
journalism. I wanted to write for the Rolling Stone, that sort of thing, but
Did you envision yourself flying off to far-flung places?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You envision yourself flying off to far-flung places and.
I just wanted to have conversations with people. I think that's what it was about. Like I really do enjoy.
Oh, so this is totally your bag.
Yeah, I really and writing about it and having commentary, written commentary, and I love the written word. And I was actually a good writer in school. I excelled there. I always had teachers encourage me, tutor other people. I knew my grammar,
Right.
so that sort of thing. So I didn't know. The thing is, I had no mentor. I had no direction.
Right.
I found an internship up there that was with a local zine. It was a music zine. So the publisher, he gave me a few things to write about, and I was excited about it. But there's no money, so I had to come back down eventually, live back with my folks, and then I was hunting for a job in the big city, and I worked in publishing. So this is pre 9/11, the late 90s. I was in publishing, and I thought that was it. I was going to be in publishing for the rest of my life. I made squat money. I mean, we're talking not even $30,000 a year.
That's publishing.
And but you know what? I was having the time of
Do you
my
watch
life.
BoJack Horseman?
I have to. That I heard, yeah.
So there is
That
a.
is the king of self-deprecating comedy.
That's adult.
love
It's on
that.
Adult
I love
Swim,
that
right?
That's Netflix.
Netflix.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Better yet.
Yeah, so there's a character in there who is a penguin, and he's in publishing. And he's very, very.
I always love on
the poor guy.
my favorite characters on Family Guy are Stewie and Brian.
Right.
And Brian's always writing his novel. He's
Right.
He's like, yes, I'm writing my memoirs. I'm writing my novel.
I wonder if it's a rip-off on
And
Snoopy.
Stewie's like, it is. But Stewie is like,
It's a dark and
how's it
stormy
coming
night."
along there? How's it coming along your book? How's it coming? And he's just
Yeah.
poking at Brian. And
Hey, you
Brian,
done with that book yet?
Brian hasn't done squat. We all know that. It's writer's
He
block.
drives a Prius.
And
That's his life accomplishment.
and that was me. I thought that I was going to be a writer by working in publishing and, I don't know, partying by night. And
Right.
I didn't write very much. What I did was try
Right.
and fail.
Well,
I failed. And what happened was I got laid off. I got laid off again. 9/11 happened. There was no job, like nowhere for me.
It was rough.
It was rough.
That was a rough time in
And
every business.
Things were converging. So I thought I was going to be
Particularly
the
in New
master.
York.
Absolutely. I was working on 3rd Avenue, and I remember going to Scholastic for an interview, and they wanted not just. I worked in Quark Express, which is a layout software. And oh, look at her, she knows. I get all excited there, lady. I know, Quark was sexy, wasn't it? I loved it. I loved
yeah,
it.
people like Quark.
I did. So I was going to be, a layout master, and then Scholastic is like, well, do you know Adobe Illustrator? Do you know how to, use Photoshop? And do you know HTML? And I'm like, but I know Quark, and I was a proofreader. But all of a sudden, they wanted more skills. So a lot of my friends, or at least one major influence in publishing, had gone into web content editing. He made 3 times as much as we were making in book publishing. So he worked for EarthWeb, and basically he just had to learn HTML. And being that when I was at, I worked at a company called John Wiley & Sons, which is still around, major publisher. They published computer books. I was in the computer book line.
Oh, you were in
So-
the documentation business.
I was.
Yeah,
nice. I was just in production. And
Originally, that was the only business model
production
Linux
assistant.
people could say with a straight face was going to work.
Really?
Yeah, like in the mid 90s, it was basically you wrote a Linux book or you didn't make any money
Right.
out of it.
We had Oracle books, we had SQL, and this is before I even understood what that stuff really was. But I decided after, I guess, around 2002, I have to go back to school. I have to go back to school. I was going to go back and just to brush up and learn HTML and how to do some of this web stuff that was burgeoning, and that's where the money was.
Right.
So I had a long, hard discussion with my dad because I knew that I would have to move back in with him.
Oh, you know
and
what?
he would have to
I
subsidize
wish
me.
I knew you because I got to help you prep for that conversation because my mom actually had an MBA and she was taught business and she transitioned from teaching business into teaching computers. And she transitioned from teaching computers to computers and math. So she could have helped you make that case.
It went okay. Believe me, my father, he always supported us financially. He still does. I mean, he is a man's man. You know, my daughters, they don't, you know, exactly. Where's the pipe? Where's the pipe?
Yeah.
But he's very supportive in that sense. And so he said, all right, if you go back to school, this is the last time I'm paying for it, and you're going to study hard.
Isn't it weird when you're an adult and you have to pitch something to your parents? And you're like you're talking to a boardroom.
I just knew that I couldn't.
Charts and graphs. And,
Right, exactly.
That's
here's your ROI.
And you know, secretly they have a little tear in their eye, like, they're all grown up. This is almost boring.
Oh, the thing is, I was past grown up at that point. I was I was 30.
Yeah.
So I should have had a career.
Had you had a Linux moment yet at that point, or no?
Linux came through going back to school to Farmingdale.
That was it, Farmingdale.
Where I met Jeannie, where I met Johnny Payne, where
Right. Where you met the Linux geeks.
It's so funny how
Linux
things
geeks.
change. So I was working. I took a part-time job my first semester at Farmingdale. Now remember, I went to Farmingdale. I was going to go to the visual communication department because that's where I would learn Adobe and Dreamweaver and all the stuff that was going to get me into web. So my initial semester was still open-minded about this stuff. So I was taking a few of the core courses, and I was working at this small card shop, and you know, it was kind of slow during the day, and I love magazines, so I was going through them, and I actually picked up a Barron's. You know what Barron's is, right? I know.
Of course I know what Barron's
I had
is.
matured to the point where I tossed the Rolling Stone and the Spin magazine aside, and I was
Right.
like, what's this? On the cover of this Barron's, it was a cartoon graphic of the Statue of Liberty, and it said, give me your coders, your developers, your software programmers, because at that point there was a wave of Indians coming into
okay. It was an article about H-1Bs.
Exactly. We were outsourcing. There was a need for programmers, and we were outsourcing at that point. And I
Right.
saw that, and I was like, maybe I should go into computer programming because then they don't have.
They're pulling people in from other countries.
Exactly. I'm like, I'm right here. You can take me in New York, and you don't have to bring somebody
have to
from
relocate
another country.
someone, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's when I guess I went to the BCS program.
So you did it for greed.
I did.
Yeah, I saw everything.
I did.
For greed. Come on.
And
a
you
little
know
bit
what?
at least.
I tell all you
Yes.
young girls out there is good money and you can survive.
Steve's listening.
What are you doing in music? Learn from me, learn from me. I did it because I didn't want to live with my daddy and mommy anymore.
Yeah.
I wanted to stand on my own. I wanted to survive. I wanted to have the American dream, a home.
Right, yeah.
your car.
Independence.
Independence. And
place
I
to
didn't
read
want to
your
get
comic book
laid
in
off
peace.
again and again. And I had grown up at that point. That's
Right.
when I decided I got to do this. And I said to myself, this is going to take me learning everything all over again. Object-oriented programming, what the fuck is that? What happened to, BASIC? And I know you spoke.
That's terrifying.
I know you spoke in another show about sequential programming. I used to love the go-to loop, I could
Right,
do
right.
that,
Yeah.
I could say read line 150,
Right,
and then
right.
oops, I forgot something, let's make it, 145, throw something in there.
Right.
But,
Well, that's why they had object-oriented programming. No go-tos.
no go-tos.
No go-tos.
Then it's calling this. It's calling this module, calling that.
Just like what's her name in The Incredibles. No capes.
Oh, I love
No go-tos.
no go-tos, no go-tos, no more go-tos. So I just pushed myself. I said, I can do this. I know I can. I'm like, what were my highest scoring grades back in high school? Well, I always did well in English and math. Believe it or not, I wasn't a history buff. I like science, but those two were my leading classes. And I'm like, if I can get it, back into my head, get back into that mode, and just do the work, I think I can find something that I like. And I mean, I tried all sorts of things within the program, and how I ended up with security is still amazing to me, because I had no confidence. I was like, oh, I can't do what the hackers do. I can't even understand PKI. I had so much trouble just learning public key, private key, exchange,
The people who get in
back
trouble?
and forth. I'm like, somebody really,
The people
can we
who get
do
into trouble?
Muppets?
The people who get in trouble are the people who think they do understand PKI. It never having rolled out a campus-wide PKI, kind of management
yeah.
infrastructure. Yeah, there's always something else. You're right. It's a lot of security implementation, security development is the craziest, scariest, riskiest thing, because it's you got to understand everything. You got to understand the system.
Yes.
You got to understand the math.
Yes.
You got to understand the programming. You have to understand
The
the libraries.
algorithms,
These
the
are all ways in
hashes.
to break it.
You got to understand the protocol. You have to
You have to
follow
really grok the
data.
math.
You've got to get granular, or at least,
And then you got to test the hell
fake
out of
it
it.
till you make it.
Well, usually, most things, yes, but in security, I don't.
Yeah,
if I could
you're
possibly
true.
avoid it,
That's true.
I really
Well,
try to avoid faking it. If we could just, I use other
I
people's
do
stuff.
align with people who are in the know.
Right.
I listen to the ones who have the knowledge, who have deep dive, and I think that's how I grow, and I'm the translator. This comes. We can talk about bridging that gap between leadership and technology now.
Yeah, all right, cool, let's do it.
Because
How'd you know I had put that little mark there?
I don't know what those marks mean.
Yeah.
I just know
That's the
this
stuff
is-
we haven't covered
This is
yet.
something that I experience as a manager in cybersecurity. So you have these engineers, security analysts, real hands-on, I don't want to call them geeks, they're just SMEs, subject matter experts. Nerds, exactly. Geeks,
love Ogre.
lovers of, Revenge of the Nerds,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got that. But they love being in it. And you know what, I was there too, because I was able to configure certain systems. I implemented DLP. I configured identity and access management applications. And you have to get
why don't you
in
tell the audience what DLP is.
data
What DLP is.
data loss prevention,
Okay.
or data leakage sometimes it's called.
Okay.
But basically it's a very powerful application that monitors you. Yes, you are being monitored. We can see what you write in your emails. We can see what you send out from your company.
Oh, so I see. So you're
inbox.
tagging particular kinds of. So this is kind of going
Right.
into the zero trust thing a little bit. You're tagging certain kinds of data.
Absolutely. So you create policies within DLP. So we'll use healthcare. So what are our jewels? PHI. That's patient health information.
Okay.
What it comprises patient health information? A first name, a last name, a date of birth, an MRN number, which is a medical record number, maybe an SSN number. Because when you go into a hospital or a healthcare facility, that's everything you give, except for the MRN number, to admissions, right? When you go in, you got to fill out all these forms, right? How do they identify you? All these components. So together you create a policy, and the policy is looking for all of these parameters, and when you pass, say, an email that has a medical record in it to an outside component, it scans and it sees that all of those parameters are met, so boom, it flags it as something, as a communication with PHI. Now, what do you do after you flag it? DLP is powerful enough where if you have an agent on your computer, it could block you from sending it. It could set up you can set up a little message that says you're violating policy by sending this outside of the organization, you know, and you could rank the policy. Or you can send it, but you want to encrypt it. So in order to encrypt it, then you would integrate probably email encryption type of application in with your DLP.
You guys using DKIM or using like GPT to sign things, to sign email messages?
Like PGP.
PGP, sorry, GPT is a GNU version, PGP. You're right, I'm wrong, okay, PGP. Interesting.
So that's a typical thing. Like a lot of times people forget to send it through the encryption channels that we give them, but if you create a little, I mean, I didn't do this, I just know this is how it works.
But you couldn't, of course, you couldn't do this unless you did the data flow mapping in the first place.
Right. I mean, I'm not the one who develops the architecture, but I help implement the tool. And we work with the networking teams and pretty much the vendors.
Right.
The vendors are the ones who.
Well, if the software doesn't work right, you're done. Right.
Exactly.
You know, it needs to be configured right.
Well, you know, the first time I worked on an implementation, the vendors came in, they installed it, but then I had to tweak it because all of a sudden we're getting all these alerts. It's alerting on everything that has 10 digits because it's identifying that as like a social security number. So like I have to deal out the false positives and false negatives.
So you're doing like the minimal possible deploy and then slowly opening things up until it works, just until it works, and no further.
Just dialing it to what you need to see, to what has meaning.
Right. To which emails you can send, which data sets you could send, which machines can connect to which machines.
Right, and I mean, that's just an example with email.
Because also your email servers talking to each other have to be safe too. It can't just be sending it
that's
offsite.
with Zero Trust, I mean, most of what I've dealt with so far to date has been internal to external. But now we're entering an age where with Zero Trust, you can't trust internally either, right? We have trusted machines have certificates, right?
Well, typically in an Active Directory, it's each machine. That was the genius of Active Directory, that it just basically took Kerberos and made it easy and automatic, you know. And
it's a ticketing system.
Every machine gets a ticket, and that's its certificate, and that says I'm valid, and my transactions are signed on this network with the controlling servers.
Exactly, but now if we enter this place where you don't trust those machines until maybe there's another factor in place. I mean, I'm interested in this.
Were you guys typically doing two-factor?
Two-factor has come into play with remote access.
So they haven't. So it's Zero Trust in the local network, but you're enforcing that through inspection.
Zero Trust. I'm sorry about that, but I haven't.
How dare you? We are serious about our microphones here.
I haven't
it's the kind of harassment you have to deal with at work
Zero Trust. I know.
Guys, use their manly voices. Listen to me in my manly voice. I'm going to smoke a pipe now.
I've done a few let's do this.
He sings heavy metal.
I was going to say that's a good
he's
metal voice. Good hardcore voice.
He's got this one bit where I swear he sounds just like a dragon.
Death metal. A dragon?
Yeah, dragon. He does it. I don't know. He can show you after.
Zero Trust is not the world I work in right now. It is something that's coming. It's something that
Right.
I'm looking into.
You guys are in the planning
it's
stage.
on the horizon. It's a recommendation for.
Is this to deal with a particular
The-
regulation or?
Nope. It's just we've entered a world where you can't trust anyone. You can't trust shit. You can't trust where your day is going. It's like, let's put it this way.
I mean,
You've got
is
to
this
build
partly in reaction to GDPR or or is
it's
this
in-
also
it's in reaction-
just trying to be better at
I think
making things
it's in
secure?
reaction to a lot of the exfiltration of data.
Right.
So if you look at, I don't know if you read the annual Verizon security report that comes out. It's a
I
big
don't. You know,
deal.
we got lazy.
It's a big deal.
I know, and we got lazy. We got used to Bart heralding it for us.
Oh, yes.
And now he doesn't do that anymore, and so we're like clueless. So I have questions about that later.
Right.
But keep going.
So it breaks it down into the verticals, as they're called: healthcare, finance, education, and what are, I guess, the trends in data loss. So more and more you see internal threats. We're protecting the external, the perimeter. It's stronger and stronger, and we're even using threat hunting to detect before it comes at us. But internally, we don't. We
Well,
do
most-
nothing. That's where Zero Trust comes from.
Right. So yeah, well, this is a continuation of Alexander, and but at the same time of General Alexander and Snowden.
Okay.
Yeah, the Snowden general, and his assertion that you need to, slice things into the network into smaller and smaller
Yes,
pieces.
that's exactly what this is. Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, I'm interested in learning more about it and seeing if it actually.
Actually, your
if
description
it's-
was really good.
If it's not just theory, but if it can work, in the business world.
Well, I think for sure it can work. So the thing that concerns me is cost. I mean, it just seems like
Right.
it's going to be non-trivial. Emails inherently, an open protocol. It's so broken, and really insecure, and it's very expensive to secure in the support costs because you have to interface with other institutions. So I'd be very interested to find out if this started to become an institution-wide adoption where they started using PGP as the standard to safely move data back and forth. Because I know a lot of industries, they just resort to faxes because it's the only way they can.
You're right, actually, but secure fax.
But that's that's all they can do. It's too crazy. It's just safer to fax. At least you can only eavesdrop one transaction at a time. Instead of eavesdropping your entire cache, of emails going through. So, all right, that was really interesting. So are you guys thinking about moving this stuff to the cloud, or?
There is a lot of that being pushed now.
Right.
Because, like I said, AWS and Azure are coming in, and more developers, I think, like the tools that are offered. Now, I don't know, this is not my area of expertise, so I've been in workshops where like AWS describes how they have all these instances which are like, I guess, virtual environments. You can control access to them, but yet I do know also that in the past, for example, Sony, the Sony breach happened through AWS because the instances that were spun up,
I didn't know that.
the default was always open to public. Now AWS has changed it so that way now a default, it's not, the instance isn't made public.
The Sony breach.
I'm
Which Sony
learning.
breach are you talking about? Is this
Oh,
the
one that happened years ago.
Oh, the one with the interview. So that was.
The PlayStation one?
Yes, the PlayStation one.
Do you know about that?
So.
They breached PlayStation Network and everyone's credit card information.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry. Well, there was. So I wasn't. I did know about that.
That one happened.
But I was actually thinking of the one.
14 or 12.
The one with the interview. So that when they were going to release
with
the
the
North
celeb-
Korean movie.
Oh, right.
Right, where they
I
were making fun of Kim Jong-un. It was
Yep,
actually
yep.
North Korea that did it, and they said, they got
Yeah.
him. They totally outed a whole bunch of private information in Sony in retaliation for making that movie, which, by the way, is phenomenal. And
I haven't seen it, but I do like Seth Rogen. and he's
yeah,
in it,
it's
and-
really good. And it's actually, I saw it recently, so it was very weird doing the show and seeing the interview, and I'm like, is that me?
I have to see it.
Yeah, it's good.
I'll
It's good.
put it on my list. Moving to the cloud, I'm just seeing, because of it's all cost. It's all about pricing, right? It's much easier to pay for this service than to bring it in-house and on-premise and have the people maintain on-premise. I know you're smiling. On-prem service that have to be patched, that need dedicated staff and continuity.
Well, this is we've talked at other times about SRE and the Netflix model. So they're kind of competing models for trying to figure out how to spend money and where to spend it inside of a company. The SRE model is pretty simple. It's just error budgets. So in other words, fault budgets. So in other words, if you create downtime, you only get a certain amount of downtime for your group. And they break it up based on how they project each group's going to need it. And if you use up your downtime, you're done. You're not deploying anything else. And then they have the Netflix model, which is basically just like, okay, everybody make as much chaos as you can. Right?
Well, I hear that model's doing rather well.
Well, the idea is being that if the hacker inside is at least if we give people carte blanche to essentially hack anything they want, and their employees, as long as they tell us about it and don't keep it a secret,
okay.
and then that way, and then the thinking is even if they take the whole damn thing down, it's just movies. Who cares? But you guys are in medicine, so
yes.
it's not just movies, and people die.
That's true. I mean, I'm amazed that they are hacking images, like radiology images, to show lung cancer on someone who doesn't have lung cancer.
That happened?
Yes, that has happened.
What?
It's in the recent news. I don't know if you want to...
Fake.
But think of the implications of that. Think of your if your technician...
It's insurance fraud,
is
at the least.
reading this. I mean, the only use I can see is like you must really hate that person. That's really malicious. You must want them to die. But
or they're really good at cooking crystal meth, and you want to inspire them. They have bad health insurance. Sorry, spoiler.
When I read about this, I'm like, well, what can you gain from harming someone else?
Well, a lot actually. This is what I was talking about before. Most people are good most of the time, and most of the good people are really good most of the time. They're really trying to help. They're trying to make the world a better place. But there are definitely people out there who don't have any empathy, and they don't give a damn.
Right.
And every model, to have a truly secure model, you have to keep that in mind. You have to be ready for someone to just go, not just AWOL, but completely AWOL.
Yeah.
Just do whatever it takes to win, and it doesn't matter who they hurt.
That's like when I first heard, and again, it's like over a decade ago, about car hacks and how somebody, now with the chips, you can slam on the brakes while somebody's going 65 miles an hour.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Scares the life out of me.
There will be someone on the show sooner or later.
Scares the life out of me.
If it kills me, if I have to kidnap them and black bag them and drag them in here to interview them, I will get someone in the car industry eventually in here.
Recording this, we can send this as evidence later.
Yeah, and get someone in here to admit that these cars are hackable, because I'm saving lives. Damn it, I'll be saving a lot of lives. I'll be saving more lives than a Navy SEAL at that point, because sooner or later someone's going to figure it out, and they're not going to just hack one car. They're going to hack a fleet. And it's going to be bad.
It's going to be the wrong fleet.
It's going to be a
the
fleet.
One carrying weapons or something.
Or it could just be cops. It's just, I think that's my favorite scenario, because it's easy to understand.
That's true.
You just hack, all the cops drive the same car. You just hack the cops of one city. You own them. The whole city shuts down.
Infrastructure.
If you're lucky, everything just shuts down. If you're unlucky, if they plan it right, like get all the cops to respond to a fake robbery or something, and then shut all the cars down.
Oh yeah. Well, that's
Total riots.
That's a
chaos.
classic hack.
Right.
You know, divert the attention. Everyone's looking this way, and then you do what you want over here.
Right. Yeah. So it's a good social engineering strategy, right? So as you mentioned the Verizon report, actually, I wanted to ask you about cyber warfare. So what is the current state of the cyber warfare? Who is the active enemy at the moment? Do you remember, or did you read it recently, or is it fresh in your
I
memory?
can't remember it from that report.
I mean, I have been out of the loop for a couple years.
I feel like it's the same old story.
It's the Koreans and the Russians.
Koreans, Russians, Chinese, and a lot of Nigerians, I guess,
okay.
are sending the emails with ransomware.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and I think we're seeing activity too.
Any
in
disappointments
South
with our
America.
allies, or not cracking down on criminal elements in their countries?
I feel I don't have the information to share with you.
No, that's fine.
I
That's fine.
apologize.
No,
for
no, it's
that.
okay. I wanted to remember. That's probably good news. If it wasn't anything
Yeah.
that stood out as shocking, then it's probably
Right,
okay.
right.
Our allies are
Some
still our
new-
allies, all right.
Exactly.
Because they aren't always. They haven't always
Isn't it nice
been.
that you can rely on your enemies?
It is, yeah. It's a nice, predictable. They make for a simpler podcast. Thanks, guys.
I wanted to finish what I was saying about leadership and technology.
Sure,
because I
sure, go
started
for
to
it.
say- I was saying, you get these people who are geeks, techs, engineers in the weeds.
Did I cut you off? I'm sorry.
No, we just diverted. Don't apologize.
All right, yeah.
I went with the flow.
All right, cool.
And this is the way I talk anyway. I
apologizing
always
for
loop
apologizing.
back, and I try
We'll loop
to
back to an
close.
apology later.
Exactly. I try to close the loop because otherwise it'll eat at me, and tonight I won't be able to sleep. Like I didn't finish saying what I wanted to say. Damn it. So you have people who are in applications in the weeds, and then you have people at the top who don't understand what that guy is doing.
Right.
A perfect example to me would be somebody who works on a SIEM, S-I-E-M.
SIEM.
That stands for Security Incident and Event Monitoring. Even now it's kind of going away. It's like a dying art, but at its high point, it's a very strong tool. Have you heard of Splunk?
Yes, I know Splunk. Oh, totally.
Okay, so Splunk is
why don't you explain
SIEM.
Splunk is what Splunk is to people?
So far as I know, Splunk is it's not a SIM, but it's a SIM tool, they
It's a
call it.
log aggregator.
It's a log aggregator.
Yes, I went through a lot of meetings before I figured out how to say
but
it.
there's log aggregators and there's log collectors. So
Right.
make
yeah.
sure you.
It's a collector.
It's a collector.
But collectors are cheap. They're a
Sorry,
dime a dozen.
Am I getting this?
Aggregators and processors are the hard
Right.
part. You can really get in there and run algorithms again, and they can pre-cog stuff so that it's quicker. So you can just be
Right,
I
and
need
you
this,
can-
and
you
it'll go
can cut out the
and come
white-
right up
you can
instead
cut
of
out the white noise too,
Because
right.
normally logs are linear and they're just
Yes.
they're just long. It's like reading a tape, and that
Right,
way and you can basically pre-process them with something like
Right,
that.
and
With Splunk.
something like Splunk, which is a tool that helps you read these logs, puts it in like English language,
Mm-hmm.
so that it isn't some like comma delimited one long tape. type of
Right.
thing.
It's just a massive size of it.
And you can query it to look for specific events.
Mm-hmm.
So say you find out that someone in your let me think. Someone in your some benign area here. Someone in your marketing department
Okay.
accessed a financial document
Right.
in the finance.
You're looking for an
area.
innocent accident.
Exactly, an
Yeah,
innocent
yeah.
accident.
Okay.
Now, how did that happen? Because the marketing person typically doesn't go into like maybe the budget files or the salary files. Oh, there's a good one. So somebody in marketing went into a finance folder, opened up an Excel sheet, with all of the salaries of all the people in the company.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen? That wasn't supposed to happen. Access was granted in error, supposedly.
Right.
Well, you look in the SIM and you can pull up Active Directory logs to see what admin provided that user with the access to the group that gave folder access.
Right.
So
So-
now that's provided,
And just that
username.
enough, if there's a pattern, it's probably a dumb
Malicious.
accident.
If it's
If it's a pattern, it's probably a dumb accident. Like if he did this, made the same stupid mistake on every single server for every single file that's
See, I
typed in
would
that
I would
directory.
argue and say a pattern is more malicious. I would say a one-off is an accident. It's like, oops, I copied the wrong
Oh, I see
thing.
what you're saying.
But
Okay.
a pattern shows why is he continually giving this person access to things that he shouldn't be giving?
You know what? We're looking at different vectors on the same chart. So you're looking at the time vector.
Yes.
And you're saying over time he
Timestamp.
keeps making
Yeah,
that
yeah,
same
yeah.
mistake.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it differently. Oh, sorry. I'm looking at it differently. From instead of the time vector, I'm looking at it from the storage vector. Like documents in this class have all been accessible.
Right.
So we're kind of having the same conversation. But yes, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But you have to sit down and figure that out.
The old-fashioned way would have been an analyst pulling logs from the storage server,
Right.
pulling a log and trying to match timestamps.
It would take forever.
It would take forever.
It would be an all-day
With the
thing.
SIM tool, snap. You got
People would have meetings about whether they just to figure out whether they could justify taking the time out of their schedule just to do that.
Yeah, and then you
Yeah, I
never
saw
really
that.
got solid evidence. It
Right.
wasn't a match. It wasn't a perfect match. But with SIM tool, you can get that, and
Nice.
you can prevent stuff. You can flag incidents. You could prevent things from happening.
Right.
So think about somebody who is doing a brute force attack, trying to log in with a username that they got, but they don't know the password. So they keep trying over and over and over again. The
Right.
SIM alerts you. It's like, hey, what's
Right.
up here? There's been 200 attempts on this one username.
Well, so what most people don't know is that's kind of this pattern recognition is kind of like a signature recognition, and those signatures may sound familiar to some people. Most people have heard the word signature before with virus signatures.
Yes.
So it's the same kind of thing.
Yes.
You can the same kind of virus signature that you
Dead.
might apply to your memory in your computer or your processor. You can apply to your whole network. It's the same kind of methodology, and this is one of the components in figuring and creating a comprehensive signature. Right.
Yeah. So again, using the SIM guy as an example, the guy at the top doesn't understand that an event is happening. What
Right.
is the weight of this event? Is it a breach? And that's where a manager would kind of waylay that information, but
Right.
in some form that leadership would understand. Oh,
Right.
look, we're getting a DDoS attack, or we're experiencing
Here's
an
what we
outage.
know. Here's when we'll know
Right,
more. Here's when we
right.
know what courses of action to take.
Because if you
Here's
just
the
spit
courses
out
of
a
action.
SIM report with all the log, and here's the SIM engineer saying, look what I got. Look at these packets or something. You can't show that to the CIO and have the CIO understand what's going on.
Right.
So I always feel like I'm the translator.
I like just like the
I'm
frantic
person-
yelling. That's great when IT departments just go to frantic yelling
Oh
and
my
just
God!
running
Look
around
what I
like
got!
it's like something straight out of Monty Python,
That'd be great. Then you sail the
that's
ship
security.
away. You sail the ship away.
Nothing can get hacked if nothing gets done.
And then the CIO comes and just unplugs the server.
Yeah, I'm going to call Con Ed. I'm just not going to pay the Con Ed bill. It'll solve itself. That was a great explanation. Thank you. Is there something
I
that
tried.
we missed on your sheet? Because I have stuff for you too.
If we did, we did. I don't know.
I don't see it. I don't see
What
it.
time point are we at? Are we close to 3?
Yeah, we're close to 3. How do you feel? Are you burnt? Do you want to quit or you want to go
I'm
for
not.
more?
What else can we talk about?
You
What
seem
else
like you're a
do you
little
have
burnt.
here?
Well, let's see.
Well,
what do we got?
I would say loopy because
Loopy?
I've never combined strong coffee with wine.
Yes, yes.
I've got some kind of
Well,
weird.
this is it. See, we
there's some
shine-
strange buzz going on.
We drug
Have I
you.
been abducted?
We shine bright lights on you, and then we ask you questions.
And you make me feel awkward and weird. It's junior high all over again.
See? 7th and 8th graders. Meanest people in the world. I told you in the beginning where this was all going.
Nice to come full circle.
Well, how about pop culture? That's easy.
Yes, I saw what
is
you
there
put here.
Is there anything that you want to talk about? I see that you mentioned you're a Black Mirror fan.
I am a Black Mirror fan. I watched the first 2 seasons just recently. I don't know if I should get into episodes or not because I don't want any
Well,
spoilers.
just don't do the new season. That's all.
Let
Just avoid
me
the new season.
say how fascinated I am with Twilight Zone. Remember Ray Bradbury?
I love
Theater?
Twilight Zone. I love both Twilight Zones, the new and the old.
I haven't seen the new. Actually, was it Jordan Peele? Didn't he reboot
Wasn't that
it?
it was 80s and the early
Oh,
90s?
that's not even the new one. Don't you know?
Oh,
that
the new-
there's
oh,
a
I'm not even talking about the new one.
New Twilight
I was
Zone.
talking about the new Twilight Zone, not the new Twilight
I did
Zone.
like it rebooted in the 80s.
Yeah, there were some good ones.
There was some, especially in the 80s when you had that fear of the bomb dropping, Khrushchev hitting the button
Or the one with the aliens where they came down and they're like you have 24 hours and everybody runs around like crazy people.
Oh, I
they're trying
didn't
to
see
figure
that
out.
one.
Oh, it's a good one.
I saw the one where the woman
Let's just put it this way:
uncovered.
people guessed at what the aliens wanted, and they may not have gotten it right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to the original series.
Right.
What is it?
How to Serve Man? How to Serve
Just
Man?
To Serve Man,
Yeah,
not
just-
How to Serve Man. To Serve Man. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
I love a lot of the ones with Burgess Meredith because not just the one where he gets locked in the bank vault and the bomb goes off and he's left with the library to himself.
I did miss some of the old
glasses
ones.
break.
Oh, that
God.
one. Okay,
That's the
yes, I did see
classic.
that one. Yeah.
But there's one where, and I can associate, I love Burgess Meredith always picks the good ones, but where he's living in a dystopian future. Not too far from 1984. It's akin to 1984, where
Right.
you have these fascist dictators.
So like now, but with more steampunk stuff.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
right. So we're
How do you
talking
really feel, Matt?
Twilight Zone. So Burgess Meredith is a relic of the old world because he lives in his apartment with all of his books that he reads, goes through pages, and he stores knowledge up here. But society says no, you are not following the norm. So of course he faces a trial, and the verdict of the trial is death. He has to be executed, but he gets to choose the method of his execution, and he said, okay, I'd like it in my home, and I'd like you, sir, and it wasn't the judge, it was like, it was one of the righteous soldier corporals, whoever,
Right.
has to come visit him to make a final goodbye. So,
Right.
do you remember this one at all?
No, I don't remember this. but-
I'm not gonna reveal the
no,
ending.
come on. Don't leave me hanging. You're not going to go
So-
find it on Netflix. It's going to take
So
forever.
this I don't know, sergeant, corporal, whatever, authoritative figure comes to visit him. He's like, okay, gonna say goodbye, sorry it had to go down this way. And Burgess Meredith just kind of rails on about how he was judged, and he was judged for knowledge, for basically trying to educate himself, and that he was in the right, society was in the wrong.
Right.
So as the corporal, lieutenant, whatever, goes to leave, the door locks, and he gets trapped in there with Burgess Meredith, and so he starts thinking he's going to die because there's a bomb that's going to go off.
Right.
And in the final seconds, Meredith gives him mercy, and he opens the door, and the guy runs out. Bomb goes off. Meredith dies. Now, the corporal has to go back to the fascist-looking courtroom, and he is now judged, and they're convicting him of the crime of not following duty. I think it was called the trial.
Oh, cool. Okay, I see it.
It's another great
Not following.
Twilight.
You will follow others.
Yeah, it's yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You are the one now who is against the norm.
Right,
You've
right.
gone against the norm.
There was one of my jobs that was an ongoing joke. I was just following orders.
Yeah, you could always get away with that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Twilight Zone, Black Mirror is the same, except Black Mirror uses technology, things that we have today. Social networking is our enemy. What was the one that I saw where, this was fantastic. There's an episode of Black Mirror where you can pretty much rewind your memory.
Yes, I remember that
You
one.
saw that one where
Yeah.
you kind of
We'll tell them anyway.
it's called the history of me or the history of her.
You just pitched Twilight Zone. Now you can pitch Black Mirror to people
Black
who haven't
Mirror.
seen it.
So this is the second season, so you should have seen it by now. But imagine a way that you can access your memories and just go forward and back, and then you actually start to hyper analyze events that happen. Imagine if I play the last 10 minutes of this conversation over and over, and I start to pick up these things like, wait a minute, Matt was staring at me in a certain way. What does that mean?
Welcome to my mind.
The imagination runs wild. So all the things you don't see the first time, you can go back and see, and think of how that would affect your future.
Right.
You then you can
overanalyze everything to the nth
overanalyze
degree.
everything to the nth degree, drive yourself crazy, and
Right.
you can also affect your happiness. I think that was
Is this
the
the one
outcome
where
of
is this
that
the one that they're cheating?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a couple.
Right. There was all kinds of
And I felt
untoward.
I
Imagine
felt-
all the untoward uses of being able to rewind your own
Right.
memories in detail, infinitum, without wearing it out
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it starts off when he goes for a job interview, and he rewinds it while he's in the cab going home, and he realizes he didn't get the job because there was two tells in the exchange that he's like, the man said, I hope that we get a chance to see you. Like, I hope to
Right.
look forward to talking to you. Just that falter,
Right.
and a woman checking something on, he rewound it, and he's like, I didn't get the job. Like, it was a failure on him.
Right.
But, oh my God, I don't want to obsess like that. I don't want to live in a world where you can do that.
Right.
Of course, there's a dark ending. There's a dark ending to
By the way,
that.
this is exactly how the show works. So I go
Yeah, I
home
believe
and watch the episode over and
Oh
over.
my
and over.
God, it's like-
why did I do
It's
that?
like looking in a mirror
What dumb joke.
that has a
It was
mirror
always
in back of
perfect.
you, and you just keep looking at your reflection.
I flub one line and don't sleep for 3 days. No, I'm just If I did that, I'd be dead already. I wouldn't even have made it this far. It's really bad.
Anyway, I love Black Mirror. As a young adult, I loved Ray Bradbury. Learning about there was one that I think you can clone you have a clone in the basement, and your wife doesn't know about it, but you activate the clone or the robot to keep her company while you go out and do whatever, right?
Nice.
And then the whole twist is you come back and your wife in bed was her clone. And you're like, oh my God, she's cheating too, But I love twists like that, and also
The biggest problem, keep getting your clone to age as fast as you are.
makes you wonder what's she doing. Wait a minute, I thought I was stepping out on her, but.
Yeah,
So,
I gotcha.
As far as pop culture, I'm one of those people. I love sci-fi if it's done well. I'm a story person. This is why I love independent film. I actually tend to follow independent film more than blockbuster because it's the story that drives you. It's the feelings that are evoked, and I don't need all the CGI and the explosions explosions and the intense love. Oh, you know, like I really don't like the movie Armageddon, and I know I'm gonna have a hate mail's gonna come in right now, but you know,
So, nah,
it's got a great
maybe
cast.
not this audience.
It's
You might
got
get
a
away with
great
that in this show.
cast, but then it's so unreal and super intense as they're trying to like blow up the core. It's like
The very best scene.
you know,
The big black
stupid.
guy
It's stupid.
is on his motorcycle, and they're trying to catch him. Right? Sorry if I'm ruining it for you, you know. And they're trying to catch, he's like the best driller in the world or something.
Right.
And they're trying to catch him, and he doesn't know what the hell's going on. All he knows is that every federal agent in the world is after him, and he won't stop. He's like,
Is that crazy?
And he's just riding.
But I mean, I think what I remember from
And that
is
scene where they're all chasing him down the road to get him to work for them, not because they want to bust him.
that was Ben Affleck's character.
I'm like, yeah, I could see that.
Or I think they're trying to
The guy for the Green Mile, I forgot his name. Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
Anyway, actually, let's drop Armageddon. I mean, back.
What do you mean?
It's not worth talking about.
Okay,
You want to
well-
hear what a good movie is? There's a movie called Eighth Grade that came
Yes,
out.
yes.
Listen, it came out last year.
You should check out the Jump Cut. They have a pretty good commentary
And I.
on movies and shows.
I mean, I'm an indie freak. I go to the cinema. I've been a member of the Cinema Arts Center forever. I used to go there in high school. My French teacher brought us there to see French films to try to, pick up on the language. But foreign films are fantastic, and you shouldn't be afraid of subtitles because some of my favorite films are in other languages. Wings of Desire, you have to see that. That's one of the top film of all time.
I've not seen it.
Wim Wenders, Wings of Desire. There's some good horror too that has come out from other areas, but mostly, I mean, I like shows that kind of, well, what's hot on my list now? Handmaid's Tale. I mean, these are the dystopian future ones.
You're right.
I like. I
don't know, Handmaid's
like
Tale?
you said, we're living it now. We are living in this era. It's kind of creepy.
Right. Well, so the good thing is, I think that, so like, I don't want to get away from, this is fun, so I don't want to
Yeah,
get,
you're
we'll
right,
come
this
back
is
around
fun.
to it. But like we're, I know it seems bad that social media seems like it's crushing, soul crushing and messing, like that a giant company can mess with people's political views,
Yes.
and
Scary.
that countries can mess with people's political views. Both of those things
Very
are scary.
scary, very scary.
And that like basically you can have like these disorganized kind of crowdsourced, almost propaganda efforts as waves of ideas as people try to change each other's minds. But the good thing is, the reason this is possible, the reason that the destruction is possible at that scale, I think, is because of the centralization, and a lot of that has to do with Web 2.0. So I don't know if you heard some of my Web 2.0 talk, my Web 3.0 talk.
Yeah.
So the idea is that I have to do a cartoon of
Yeah,
this. I've mentioned it way too many times. So Web 2.0 is, you ever hear
It's the newest
walled,
version.
walled garden? You ever hear
No.
that expression?
No.
So the idea behind Facebook is it's a walled garden. They have walls around Facebook, and you can go in there and you can play, and they make the rules. But if they don't like you, you're out. And if they don't like what's happening, they shut it down.
You
And
talked about shadow banning in the past. That
Right,
happened
right.
to a good friend of mine on Instagram.
It did?
Yes, and
What
it's a
happened?
shame. She had, and I guess I can promote her. She started a blog.
Oh, we're
called
doomed here anyway. Go for it.
She
You're not going to
Walks
make it any worse for us. I'm on every list. Hello, one viewer.
She started a WordPress blog called SheWalksSoftly.com.
Okay.
Her name is Dana Anhalt. I can say her name.
Yeah.
And basically, through the blog, she explores art, music.
How dare she? It sounds ridiculous saying it.
Science. This all converge at the areas where they converge. Oddities. She loves oddities. Shrunken heads.
Right.
Weird creatures.
You mean like everyone watching cable at 3 in the morning? Yeah.
Or shopping in Manhattan.
Shopping in Manhattan.
But some
They put
of
that in the
some of
window?
the art is surreal.
Yeah.
And I guess other people could be offended by it.
How
Now-
dare they? Oh, sorry.
Exactly.
I'm offended by their offense.
The reason why I mention this is because this is her outlet. She's pretty sick. She actually. She's bedbound. That's all I'm going to say about it. I don't want to
Right.
get into her personal
That's fine.
stuff. But this is her outlet. This is how she connects with the world. And to think that somebody
And I assume she had a pretty
flagged
good
her she has a large network, international. But somebody flagged one of her pictures
Mm-hmm.
as reporting it, I guess, as offensive or blocking it, and that affected the whole algorithm of who can view what she's posting. Now, less people are viewing it, and she did have a large viewership and network, many comments, things that that encourage discussion. So I didn't even know what shadow banning was until she, started posting. I've been shadow banned. Please help me get back, out of this. I really, I was shocked because I felt like
horrible.
it is horrible.
I'm laughing because it's horrible.
Because if anybody followed her,
That's the
if
right
anybody
reaction.
read what she wrote, the intelligence behind her, if anybody followed what she was saying and why she was posting it, they never would have done that.
Right.
They didn't get her.
I did,
That's it. They didn't get her.
Yeah.
So then don't look.
Yeah. I completely agree. Totally. Yeah. And you know what?
Same with Facebook.
I'm heavily anti-censorship. I'm against doxing. I'm against, I'm against speech that is an action that directly harms another person. But as far as negative examples, we need negative examples in free speech. We need people to say dumb things and to get mocked. I'm sorry. We need it. It's not pleasant. If you don't want to participate, stay away from it. But don't try to shut them down, because what happens is then if you completely erase that speech, someone else tries it again.
Right.
And if you erase
It never
that,
goes
someone
away.
else it just multiplies it.
Honestly, it's like
Censorship multiplies the speech that's being censored. The best way to promote a literary work is to ban it.
right. Exactly.
It's just that all
Exactly.
over again. That's almost a quote from someone. I've forgotten who, but
Do you think Huck Finn would have been as popular if it wasn't banned?
No, absolutely not. And it's the same story
Many-
played out over and
yeah,
over and over
yeah.
again. And I can't help but feel like someone missed a week at school to think that this is okay. You missed it. You missed Westerns. You missed the Renaissance, folks. Come on, keep up here. You missed Gutenberg. Pay attention. Yeah. So it's a shame, and I'm glad you can promote her and
finish
send me
your-
a link.
I absolutely will.
So Web 2.5
yeah.
is so you have these walled gardens everywhere.
Okay.
Twitter's a walled garden, Facebook's is a walled garden, Google's services are walled gardens, like YouTube's a walled garden, right? So. And Web 2.5 is this idea that you can use the web browser essentially, and I can say this now, I wasn't saying it when the show started, so that's how much it's changed in the past 3 months.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's really starting to take off. Web 2.5 is adding things into your browser and peeking over the wall and either adding in or
And
extracting
add in, like, a
information.
plugin, you mean?
Yeah, you
Is that
put a
what you're-
plugin in like
plugin,
Firefox.
okay,
Like
yep.
the political one right now is Gab, which is Dissenter. And if you don't know, you probably have Dissenter comments on your pages, and if you don't have the
haven't.
plugin, you would never know it. Because so basically what it is, it's a
Interesting.
database of URLs and comments that correlate to URLs. So, but if you're like, oh well, that's the Gab is evil or da 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 da, they're not. They're just evil people go there because they can do whatever they want. Of course, that's what happens, right? When you have a place
Yeah.
where people can do whatever they want. That's how Twitter used to be before they started cracking
I guess
down.
if I were
And-
if I were to say anything should be censored, it might be certain images of violence and brutality that children can see. I mean, would
Well, all
you
right.
want?
I'm
think
okay
about
with that. I'm
Aleppo.
okay with
think
protecting-
about the war.
I'm okay
and
with protecting innocence. That's fine.
That's what I.
Yeah, I think that should be a parent's
Or like somebody
prerogative.
getting their head chopped off and screaming. Do you want your 5-year-old seeing that?
No, but I need to be able to see that because I need to remember that motherfucker did that and that not to trust him. I can forgive him, but I don't have to trust him. I have to remember
Yeah,
that
but
he did that.
I'm about protecting the innocence too.
Yeah. So that's a just
But
cause.
in a way, that is censorship because you're repressing that image.
They're not ready. You know?
Exactly, they're not ready.
So children are different. Children, it's a totally different animal, right? How do you when you have young children? What do? You put plastic things in the outlets so they don't stick their finger in it.
Yeah.
Right. You know, you put up baby
keep them
gates.
innocent.
You put rubber things on the corners so they don't hurt themselves, and you create a safe place. Right. That's a child thing, right?
Absolutely.
But like at some point, you know, it's the parent's job to transition them from basically a crazy person rubber room, which is what it really is.
It is. It's a shelter.
They're little crazy people,
Yeah.
and you're trying to keep them alive long enough that they realize what they're doing is crazy.
And also, you
That's kind of growing up.
yeah.
And then, you know, when they get to a point, and you can argue about what age it is. But
You need to have a well-adjusted adult. You need to bring them to that
Right.
point. If they are traumatized in any way at a very young point, what are the chances of them being well-adjusted?
yeah, of course, yeah. But at the same time, by the time they're 18, you know, when they're 18, the day they're 18, they can go to a military office, sign up,
Yeah,
become conscript,
I know.
and kill and be killed, and like, so at that point, somewhere in between that baby room
Yeah.
and that day that they could sign their life away,
Ooh.
they might at least need to hear that that's happening, you know,
Hearing it.
and when they're past that age, they should be able to investigate it for themselves.
Right,
You know,
right.
I'm not saying.
No,
Trust me. I
know
mean,
what you
I practically puked when I saw Faces to Death when I was a kid. You know, I'm not into gore. But sometimes it's information. You know, sometimes it is.
And
you
human
gotta-
nature is sometimes you can't
an
look
adult-
away. You're just
and-
curious.
And you know, and
Morgue
if an
shots.
adult thinks they can't handle it, that's fine. But you know what? You're not informed. Stop thinking you're informed, and you know maybe it's time to back up until you're
Right.
ready to be informed.
And those people who are doing
stop
that shadow
participating.
banning, they're making that judgment for everybody. Who are they to do that?
Yeah, I don't want that at all. I mean, it's gross. I see gross stuff all the time, you know,
So do
because I
I.
go to the open places.
Being in cybersecurity.
Yeah, well, you guys are the first defense against gross.
One of my first tasks was putting together a report on all the malware, the viruses that were out there. Well, a lot of the viruses showed naked people. It would pop a naked woman on your screen, and I was like, wow, this is my job. I get paid to do this.
Woohoo, naked women virus.
I get paid to look at the viruses.
Naked woman viruses, nice. Yeah, well, as long as it's all legal and consensual at
Yeah,
first. you know,
exactly.
then it gets to not even talk about the really bad stuff. Actually, it's funny. I just had a conversation with I met with a couple of cops at a car show, and that wasn't. There was many steps in between that. It wasn't like I met with a couple cops and I'm like, I'm gonna go meet with some cops. I just ended up sitting with some cops and they were talking, and they were sharing all these stories about
The
what they
things they
did,
see.
the jobs they did after being cops. They're like, we don't even want to talk about the stuff we saw when we were cops. It's too horrible.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean,
That's a tough job.
it is really tough.
It really is.
It's tough to, but you know what?
Somebody's got to do it.
Somebody's got to do it, and you know, maybe part of realizing whether you can handle that or not is being able to look at that video of that guy's head done chopped off.
Exactly.
And then when you see that, are you going to say halt and stop it, or are you going to go ah! and run away? And run away
Absolutely.
and screaming and just panicking and.
Well, let me say,
know,
when I
I
went
woke
back,
everyone up with that scream, didn't I? Sorry. I hope the filter worked.
You got compressors, you're good.
Okay, good. Yes, the compressor worked.
that is why I didn't go into computer forensics because I have such a desire to go into computer forensics. I love those ID crime shows and where they they come in, they take the computer away, and then they dissect the hard
Louisa
drive.
was sure
and-
she could find the evidence on the computer.
But
Dun,
when
dun,
I
dun.
found out the majority of the cases are for child pornography, I had to ask myself, do I have the sustenance to look at pictures, all of these pictures over and over and over again? I mean, yeah, I want to get the criminal, but can I stomach that? I mean, kudos to those who do that job because it's a tough one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really tough. That's the worst case, I think. That's just. But you know what? If no one does it, guess what? They just run around. They run
it's a
free.
high-paying field, computer forensics.
Right.
I mean, of course, you could use legal cases and other things, but
Right.
you can't unsee things many times.
Right, right.
You wish you could. Wish you could erase that, go into your memory chip and hit the button.
Oh,
and
like in Blackberry. Okay,
we don't
deleted
need that
it.
anymore.
All right, I'm
Delete
good.
that. I wish.
I just wrote down what it was, so I remembered. Well, in a way, that's what police do, right? They write out a police report.
reporting,
Yeah,
yeah.
so they don't forget what it was, because by the time it comes up in court, they're like, I don't know.
Yeah. I've seen 10
What did I
cases
write?
like that already.
That's what happened. Yes, I'll testify to that because I trust it's my handwriting. What do you really trust? What we were talking about before.
What do you?
Yeah, if someone could, like you were saying with the MRI, with the X-ray, you just slip in something in their handwriting. This is one of the reasons I'm doing this show live, because it's getting easier and easier to do through edits to put lies in people's mouths.
Well, can you make me look really good, like a size 10?
That's not how it works.
Oh, come on.
That's great.
Make me look like Winona Ryder.
You're really funny. Well, I think we're done. We had 3 hours.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you did really awesome, and it was a
Thank
lot
you.
of fun.
It was a lot of
Would
fun.
you like to come back on?
Of course I would. Oh, I'm getting applause. Thank you. It was a pleasure and an honor.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Louisa, for being on. And good night. See you next week on the Technocrat Live.